Joint meeting between the Facilities Committee and the Finance Committee. I guess we should go around the room so everybody knows who's here.
Rich Martino,
Lawrence Small.
Dane Olsonino,
Kathy Bates.
Jim Harris,
Dave Rathgeb.
Tamara Twardowski.
Jeff Scott.
Aaron Spores.
Alrighty. So I guess since our auditor's here, is that where we're planning to start, or?
I'm sorry.
Shut the doors.
Yeah. I'll do it. Brace you guys.
Sounds like they're having a good time.
And then the fan kicks on.
Not too bad for this thing.
What I have just handed out is a draft of the financial statement. So there's two pieces of information that are going to go into the final that are not in it. One is the management discussion and analysis, which I have now. That's written by management here and responds and really gives the results of the audit. It's supposed to be the summary review of the audit statement, so if somebody just wants to read a cursory of the whole statement, this covers it. The last thing is a corrective action plan for the one finding that we have. So, and that's also going to be attached to the back of the report. The first thing is when we do a single audit here, which means that your federal awards exceed $750,000. So we have to audit under generally accepted auditing standards, government auditing standards, and then specifically to the federal programs you receive. All of those reports were unmodified. That's the highest level of assurance that we can issue. Basically, it's a clean opinion. What I'm actually going to do is just talk a little bit about the main funds that you focus on throughout the year. The first one is the general fund, and you can see on page 65 of the report, a budget to actual. Again, that's page 65. It's budget to actual comparison. And you'll see that your total revenues, you had budgeted $52,623,000. Your actual revenues came in at $53,087,000, an increase over budget of $463,000. There are a couple variances, though. You'll see under local sources, a large $1.7 million variance. When I went back and looked at the detail on that, most of that is related to how the real estate taxes and delinquent real estate taxes were budgeted versus how the actual revenues came in. The next line down, state sources, you'll see a large variance the other way. We had over $2.1 million more than what was budgeted. This school was very fortunate. Ready to Learn block grant, $500,000. Nobody knew that was coming, so every school is picking up that extra revenue this year. And that was adopted in the state budget after, of course, you did your budget. So the other large increases that we saw, Social Security, retirement, came in higher than what was budgeted, as well as transportation costs. The revenue that you got from the state was more than what you budgeted. So when you combine all three of those, the variance in total is about 1%. It's actually less than 1%. You continue down the page in our expenditures. We had budgeted total expenditures about 2/3 down the way. The page, $53,042,000. Our actual came in at $52,219,000. Favorable variance of $823,000. And if I look down the list, there's some swings back and forth. Most of those are caused by personnel or benefits, because I went back and looked at the detail. If you look at administration, the support services, that's $221,000 negative variance. Most of that was the fact that you issued debt. The debt issue costs, refinancing costs actually are included in that. You didn't budget that at the beginning of the year. So that's the reason for that variance. Again, though, when you continue down the page, other financing sources and uses, you see the issuing of the refunding bonds, and you'll see that money that came in went right back to pay old debt off. And it did save you money overall. You had budgeted a use of fund balance for the year, $568,000. You actually did increase fund balance by $523,000. Bringing your total fund balance for the general fund to $5,085,000. You just want to flip to page 18. That fund balance we just addressed and talked about. You'll see the same number under the general fund on the left-hand side of this page. And right now you have unassigned fund balance of $1,602,000. That is actually less than 3% of your expenditures. So if I looked at your total expenses for the year and looked at what 1 month's cost is to run the school district, 1 month's cost is about $4,350,000. So you can see you have less than 1 month of operating expenses sitting there. Typically, most schools have a fund balance of 5 to 8% of next year's operating expenditures. So you can just gauge where you are compared to most schools that we audit.
That's a year-end number?
That is a year-end number. And basically, you need to have more if you have a lot of debt service payments in July and August and September, because until your tax dollars start coming in, you have to be able to make sure you pay payroll during the summer as well as make those debt service payments. So, you will see an assigned balance. We do have $3,339,000. And $1.6 million of that is for the 16-17 budget that you passed. That is to balance the budget. Another $1 million is set aside for capital improvements. And then $665,000 is, of course, for the retirement rate increases. Again, most schools have some of that set aside with the increase. This year it was 25.6%, I believe. Next year it goes up. This operating year we're now in, it's up to 30%. So for every dollar, 30 cents on the dollar, we're going right back out to pay PSERS rates. The other fund I want to just talk about briefly is the food service, and that's on page 23. Page 23 shows our operating revenues, $734,000. That's actually up from last year quite a bit. Last year's revenues were $670,000, so you can see there's a nice improvement there. Your operating expenses are $1,194,000, showing a loss before our federal and state subsidies of $459,000. After our state subsidies, we actually have a positive change in net position. You're one of the few schools I'm actually auditing that show that this year without transfers from the general fund. So you can pat yourselves on the back. $35,000 net income with the fund balance of last year brings the total fund balance to $128,000 at the end of the year. I will make one comment on the government-wide statements, and those are actually pages 16 and 17. You just flip to 16. This is full statement. It shows all the activity of the school. It includes the capital improvements, the capital assets you have. It also includes all liabilities, including the pension liability. So the one number I want to point out is, you look about 2/3 down the page, you'll see total liabilities. The second to last liability, we have net pension liability, $81,476,000. That is your piece of the PSERS puzzle, as far as what your district's portion is. And that actually went up from last year. Last year it was $72,116,000, went up $9.3 million. You look, payroll's pretty flat, so it's just changes overall in portion of the plan, plus the fact the plan did not make the amount of money they thought and projected that it would. So, every district is showing those kind of increases. So, that's all I'm going to say about the net position statement. It hasn't impacted anyone as far as I can tell about the ability to continue to borrow debt. So that's really the highlights of the audit. I'll be happy to answer any questions on the report once you get a chance to actually look through it.
At the beginning, you said you had one finding, what's the finding?
The one finding was related to, it's actually on page 81, and it has to do with our testing of the two federal programs that we had to test. We had to test IDEA as well as Title I, and it's related to the documentation and the review of the reports that actually go in to draw down the funds. It's a cash management report finding, when we looked for support to back up the numbers as far as what was submitted. For a couple of them, the support wasn't there. We could see the expenses were being made, but we couldn't see the actual support for what went in. We also did not see any sign-off from that. That's the other big issue. With the change in the uniform guidance, we're required to look to make sure there's internal controls. Someone was reviewing off of those reports. Again, there were some changes in personnel, but that is our one finding. So. Any other questions?
It's very quiet. What question? I don't know if this is something that you would feel comfortable answering, but I'll ask. Do you have any recommendations on things that we could do differently through the audit? You mentioned our fund balance is much lower than other districts that you audit. Would you make the suggestion that we need to keep a higher fund balance, or is that not?
My recommendation is look at cash flow needs, and I tell this to every district. And I had mentioned the debt service. One of the things you guys do differently than a lot of schools that we audit is you basically pay all your summer pays by the end of June. Teachers, instead of making payments in July and August, you guys have historically paid everything by June 30th. So we have a very low accrued salaries piece. But the piece that you don't necessarily project and look at is how much do I need for debt service? What are my payments July, August, September? And you still have summer pays that you still have pays that you're going to make from your 12-month employees that are here year-round, that are not the teachers. So I would look at those needs as well as debt service, and then look at my fund balance and make sure that you have a margin to cover you in July, August, and early September before tax revenue starts really coming in the door. That's my recommendation.
Jim, before Lauren got here, the temporary business manager, Kim said that we kept harping that we should have a 5% fund balance. To do that, we would have to add several $1 million to our fund balance.
Well, but if you look at it month over month, there's times when we have well over that.
Well, we've never not been able to pay our bills.
Right.
We made it through the budget fiasco last year, but what she's saying is watch your cash flow.
Well, we're playing around with the timing.
Well, last year we had another 1.6 in the unassigned fund balance though, too, right? Because we transferred that, we plan to use that this year. So, Last year, or the year we had the budget issue, we had 3.5 million, or 3 million.
That one odd date, bond payment date, that's done,
That's
right?
gone.
It's gone, right?
The one in July?
Yeah.
Oh, we don't have that anymore.
Right.
Okay, so we don't have to worry so much about that.
I think important to mention, not that any of us have probably forgotten, that based on Lauren's 5-year projection, that fund balance is not going up. Based on the pieces increases that we know about and other things that we already know about, right? That fund balance is not projected to increase, which
Oh, I knew
is
that.
essentially what we're hearing we should be trying to do. So something's got to give somewhere. Pieces is stable, but it's not going away. And it's up to 32%. Right, so.
If I heard you correctly, the state Peters investment, again, did not yield what was expected to be yielded.
That is correct. And
Okay,
even
so
They've
that
done.
$9 million to our net, yes.
to your piece
Or
of
no.
the pie. And that indirectly is what's causing the rates to rise every year.
I really can't hear.
The other thing is they had used a 7.5% discount rate as far as the earnings. Right after they issued the report, they lowered that to 7.125, I think, or something like that, which automatically just gave everybody another increase to that liability. And that's actually high compared to what the actual earnings are right now, so that's beyond all our control, so. Any other questions?
Will the fact that, and I mean, I know it's a small piece, but the fact that we've done some outsourcing, will that in the future affect our Peasers liabilities at all? I mean, I know they're a small piece of the Peasers puzzle, but
It does
It's-
help.
It will affect it's such a small piece of our total liability.
As
But like she's saying, they keep playing with that discount rate.
Well, that's because they were made a little bit of grandiose assumptions before, I think. So they're finally coming back down to earth and probably should be even lower.
Well, the market at 18.9 yesterday, so we thought we were doing pretty good.
cash.
Most districts are actually outsourcing what they can, cafeteria, maintenance, busing. So if you hit those 3 areas,
What about it?
Thank you.
And
No.
Since the chief is here, we might as well not waste your time, right, chief?
yeah, we feel safe the longer you're here, so.
Those kids next door,
Yeah,
they seem pretty,
Yeah, they're pretty tough next to it.
Just leave us your taser, we'll be okay.
It'll be easier.
Oh, yeah, surely, I don't want to be rude. Good evening, everybody, I'm the early brief.
Yeah, I
And
was
I
saying
thank you
that
for-
there's a more comfortable chair over there if you want to sit.
Oh, no, not at all, I don't mind, I prefer to stand if that's okay. Well, first of all, I'd like to say good evening, my name is Andrew Kenzie, for those of you who don't know me, I'm the chief of the Amity Township Police Department. I've been here approximately a year. I have 25 years in law enforcement experience, and I have a major concern. It's an issue that plagues everybody nationwide in the world of law enforcement. And I've come to you tonight to start a dialogue. That's the purpose of my coming here this evening, just to start a dialogue, to get some feedback from you on what you think about a school resource officer. Back on Tuesday, there was a teen that stabbed 5 classmates in Utah in the neck and torso. They're getting ready for a physical education class in the boys' locker room in Mountain View High School. That occurred around 7:47 a.m. Staff members cornered the suspect until a police officer assigned to that school arrived on the scene, subdued him with a taser, and was able to minimize any further problems or any further incident. All 5 victims are expected to survive. And as a result, the threat was eliminated, and this 16-year-old now, who had no sign or symptom of doing something so egregious, is now in custody. So with that being said, we're 18.5 square miles here in Amity Township. Our officers respond to 25 to 30 calls on a busy average day, ranging from domestics to robberies. Worst case scenario in our case was a murder back, let me make sure, August 7th, 2016. Michael Shields was gunned down for intervening in a robbery. This case is yet to be solved. We've been gathering evidence. We've been working diligently to try to get it solved. It hasn't been. We have 12 officers, including myself, to cover 18.5 square miles, well below the federal standards. We have a budget, like the school board does, and I'm mandated to be as fiscally responsible as I possibly can be. I've put into effect a request for one additional officer in January, which helps a bit. Still want to offset our overtime costs, et cetera, et cetera. Just to give you some general idea of what's going on in your school system, and again, I really appreciate your time. The Daniel Boone Middle School, back on the 28th of April, 2016, I just went back to January, had a call for drug-related narcotics. On the 24th of April, 2016, criminal mischief and vandalism. On the 1st of April, disorderly conduct. Again, on the 20th, at the Amity, at 1845 Weavertown Road, criminal mischief, harassment and stalking. On the 21st of October of this year. On the 7th, criminal mischief and vandalism. And the list goes on. I know of 2 sex offenses that we're currently investigating that involve the schools. I can only give you a limited amount of information because we're bound by oath, and the Berks County District Attorney's Office are the sole responsible party for investigating these types of crimes. So I can only give you but some information on that. But there's just a slew of things that are going on within the schools that I think that a school resource officer would benefit us better. For instance, addressing crime and disorderly problems, drug activities in and around the school, of course, taking action against unauthorized persons on school property, making arrests, issuing citations, serving as monitors and hall monitors and truancy officers, crossing guards, et cetera, responding to off-campus criminal mischief that involves students, and obviously serving as liaison between the police department and schools. So I guess this comes down to the question is, how much would it cost to fund a police officer for this type of request? About $140,000 a year. You have workers' comp, you have pension contributions, you have obviously all kinds of other insurances. We have overtime, if overtime would be an issue. That's the starting point. There are some grants out there. I've been looking at the Pennsylvania Department of Education, some other areas. There are some available grants. What specifically they are and how much they are right now, I don't have an answer for you. I haven't got that far into it. As far as shared responsibility with some other jurisdictions like Birdsboro, there again, I'll have to look into that a little further to see if they would be interested. What our contribution could be would be minimal, because we are, again, financially stressed like everyone else, but I just think it's just a need. I think we should at least start a dialogue, a starting point. What I've done, as you all know, is I've implemented logs. So the police officers are coming into the schools every day while the schools are in session and doing incremental checks. They're signing these logs, so at least you see the police presence within the schools in the confines of our jurisdiction. And that helps, but it doesn't help in the event that there's some kind of occurrence. I haven't even got to the point of starting an active shooter program yet where the police department and the school board are engaging in some kind of practical application. We haven't even got that far yet. What I'm trying to do now is get the funding and the available to get a police officer in the schools all the time when the schools are in session. I don't know how realistic that is. I know everybody's kind of strapped for money, and just as we are, but I think from a standpoint of liability, I think that we're in a crunch time situation where we're in MacArthur times. If we don't do something proactive, as opposed to when something happens and we just react, then I think we're going to be in a bad situation long term, because I think things are happening. It's not when. I'm sorry, I stand corrected. It's not if, and I had said this at the last supervisor meeting, it's when. It's when somebody's going to bring a gun in, or it's when somebody's going to bring a knife in, and then what happens then? What did we do to prevent it? Logs are fine, but quite frankly, from a law enforcement standpoint, I've seen this. It's cyclical. For some reason, I don't know, it's the internet, it's this generation, or whatever the circumstances are, kids feel that the way to resolve their problems, whether it be cyberbullying or some kind of issue, is to resolve it through violence. We're lucky. Amity lucky. Amity's lucky. And I can tell you right now that these crimes right here are just the reported ones. There's probably a lot of stuff that's not reported, and there's been issues and situations where we as the police department are not receiving the information from the schools of things that have happened until after the fact, which is a problem for me. So what I'm doing right now, again, here is imploring you to collectively put our heads together and figure out how we can get a cop in the school at all times. Even if it's just an overtime detail. We put a police officer in the schools, alternatively, worst case scenario, 2-3 days a week. At least they're walking through the schools and they're there in the event that something happens, they can have an expeditious response as opposed to responding after the fact. To me, having a police officer's presence in the school is a great deterrent. What statistically the deterrent would be, I don't know, quite frankly, but I'm sure it does.
Chief, if I may,
Surely.
Lauren and I were at the township meeting the other night when the chief brought this up. And what his vision is that he would have an officer stationed in our schools. Now, we're not going to have one in each building. He would rotate them between Amity, the middle school, and Monocacy. Part of the problem occurs with he has no jurisdiction in Birdsboro and he has no jurisdiction in the high school. So, and that's what he used the term shared responsibility. Now, I talked to Jim about this when we scheduled this presentation, and Jim said the last time they discussed anything like this, correct me if I'm wrong, the state police are adamant that the high school is theirs.
Yep.
So that wouldn't, this would not help if they would not allow local law enforcement to patrol the high school. So there are a couple issues that need to be discussed, including cost.
Now, there is, and I'm on the site now, Safe Schools Grant. First time, I believe, we have received that grant this year, $30,000, and we're targeting it towards walkie-talkies. It's equipment, programming, or a school resource officer. I was wrong. It's $60,000 for a school resource officer. So what it says here that looks like briefly, the board would have to authorize the police department to go for this grant, and that could be the funds used for an SR, a school resource officer, even if it didn't cover the whole district. That's $60,000 that could go for it, and it's grant funded. We would still get the $30,000 each year for equipment, programming, and working together, they would have to submit the grant application for a school resource officer. That could be used.
And you can do that every year, or is it?
Yes.
Okay.
How long has that program been in existence?
It's still around. I mean, I was in Indiana when we were doing it. It was 5, 8, 10 years ago. So, but
Making sure it's one of those ones that doesn't vanish all of a sudden.
Yeah, well, I mean, when I got here, I asked, when do we apply for it? And no one had heard of it. So I contacted the state. It was during the budget impasse, and they were like, well, we don't have anything yet. I kept calling, kept checking. And then the budget got passed. It kicked out. We applied for it. We got the grant, 30 grand. And looking around, a lot of the other districts are receiving it. It's a common thing for funding of equipment, once again, and school resource officers. So it could be a grant funded
Yeah, I
position.
mean, my biggest issue is what was just said is if I mean, and I know, we only have the elementary school in Birdsboro, but, the Birdsboro police are also very territorial. And then the state police are very territorial. So, I mean, if we're going to hire somebody, we need the person to be able to go wherever they need to go.
Yeah, I mean, the logistics of it would probably have to be ironed out depending on how much revenue we generate. As far as the state police territory, can't touch that. Ditto with Birdsboro. I know in Amity we can secure these schools, but that could be an issue. That's why I said this is just the onset of, we're at the fetal stage of this whole thing, just to try to generate some dialogue on what we can do to get started. Obviously, I'd have to sit down with Birdsboro and get a general idea what Chief Roth thinks and what his feedback would be specifically.
As I told you in the email I sent you, I mean, personally, I think it's a great idea, but there are questions. And you talked about a total cost of roughly 140. As grants for 60, you said your share would be minimal. What is minimal? Because we need to know what we'd be looking at out of the remaining 80.
Let me throw something else out there while you're thinking about that is, so, you know, would we use a resource officer during the summer? Or would that officer then be great to go to you to cover vacations during the summertime for your officers? So
Well-
then would I only pick up the summer months?
Option number two,
Yeah.
we would pick up the summer months because we would utilize them back in patrol capacity. Unless you had some kind of summer program where you needed to utilize the SRO. So we'd have to figure that out mathematically. I mean, for the most part, the police officer would be assigned to the schools, 9 months out of the year. So those remaining months, I guess, some formulatic way we'd have to figure out. That's why I can't give you a definitive answer of how much we can contribute. I do have some money that is in our capital budget. I have a certain amount of money that I have, but I can't give you a definitive answer as to exactly how much. That's why I said I just wanted to start the conversation just to.
Well, yeah, I didn't need a number tonight, but
Yeah,
to finalize this, we would
surely.
need a number.
Yes, sir.
But once again, if we go for the grant, it's nothing out of our pocket. I'm looking at, I'm wrong, $24,999.99. While Messing got 15.5, and the Berks IU received 24.9 out of our county. So it could be a grant funding position that we're just signing off, it's okay to get the grant, and that position would fall to the chief if the grant didn't come one year, that's on them. We have to do some sort of memo of understanding that we would authorize him to go forward with the grant for $60,000 maximum. And whatever that cost was, they would have to make up the difference. And if it didn't happen one year, we're not on the hook for that.
Well, but 60, the full amount would be 60, that's only about 40% of an officer for the year.
But that officer would solely work for the schools. We only have 3 schools and both in the summer.
So really like
Other
halftime.
schools do this, that have resource officers that have schools in state police jurisdiction. Because it's my assumption that a resource officer is the liaison with the police departments. Because if there's something major that we have to call law enforcement, they would still call in the police. But the small stuff, the disorderly conducts, the small citations, if you will, the misdemeanors and below, they file themselves. But they're certified to be municipal police officers, correct?
Well, I guess are they school employees then?
Some
So,
schools
yeah.
have their own police departments.
Yeah.
I mean, they have a school police department.
Schools are allowed to, like Philadelphia has their own police force.
Wilson School District has, they use Safe Schools grant to pay for part of their SRO, who's actually a municipal cop. So the borough has assumed the responsibility of hiring that person, and then they apply for that grant every year, and that just offsets the cost, and then the school district picks up the rest. The one year they didn't receive the grant, so they just had the police officer there part-time, 4 hours a day rather than 8 hours a day, and that's how they have done it. Muhlenberg's actually looking at it as well, where my kids go, and they're kind of going to do the same thing. If they receive the grant, they'll do a 1 or 2 day a week kind of thing to work their way into it and see how it works,
And I can
depending on
tell
what
you,
grants they get.
Governor Mifflin did it last year, school police officer, they got $40,000. However, no one in Berks County got it this year. The year before,
So Wilson may just have now just assumed that cost totally and just said, hey, we're going to keep them here. That's
and the year before, no one, Berks County,
wow.
and the year prior to that, no one, Berks County.
But what you're looking at doesn't show if they were turned down or just nobody applied.
It shows that they received it.
Right.
Right, so what's up? Yeah.
So, does, are you guys involved with the, like, I don't know how they do it in Berks County. I'm used to Chester and Montgomery, but like they have like, individualized SWAT programs or CMERT or something?
We have
What's-
BSERT here.
So
Two
is
of my
that,
guys are involved.
is that this area of the county or?
County.
So I was wondering, now, did they do stuff like the active shooter drills in the school? And like, I guess what I was wondering is if maybe if Birdsboro's involved in that with you guys, like, do you guys
You guys have drilled over.
talk about some of that stuff
guys have
at
drilled over
those
other
type
schools, right?
meetings, I guess?
They have prior to me being here. I haven't done it yet since I've been here. My plan is to start integrating the police and the teachers together and do some real good practical application, at least on a, I would say, a monthly basis, just so we can know how to make entry, to know what our protocol is. I mean, the protocol in an active shooter situation is eliminate the threat. We'll worry about the first aid later. Ingress and egress routes. I mean, how are we going to transport these people from A to B, what the responsibility is. I mean, all these things need answers. And quite
Yeah,
frankly,
so-
we don't have any definitive.
So what I've talked about for a little bit now is we need to form some kind of committee. I think as a school, have some kind of one of our ad hoc committees about this, because I think there is some good stuff that we have Dane, one of our principals who's active in this kind of stuff, and but we don't really we haven't put anything I don't believe comprehensive together.
Well, we've had a meeting
Yeah.
when we first got here. That's how we learned about the state police not wanting anyone else in the territory. Although they showed up an hour late to the meeting.
So do they respond fairly quickly to issues?
Yes.
But they don't want to deal with little issues, do they? I mean,
They respond.
do they?
They respond, and they respond in force. So they've been very responsive. It's just a matter of, that it'd be nice if,
But no, I think we need some we need to set a protocol. Whether so what happens? I mean, if something happens in middle school tomorrow, do we know where we're staging? Where are we going to evacuate the students to? So that the
Evacuate-
parents know where to pick them up. Because we know how to communicate.
church. Amity and middle school are the church. The Birdsboro is the fire station, and the high school is Immaculate, isn't it?
Immaculate.
Yeah. We worked it out when they first got
And
here.
the parents know.
Is
Right.
Wave a little.
Wave. We gotta move them around.
I was going blind for a minute.
Part of my measures now I have in place, we need to do at least one evacuation drill a year along with the fire drill. Because when I first got here, no one knew where Birdsboro went. And also, the evacuation drills also help the sites where we're evacuating to learn what to do when we get there. The fire station may be like, oh, you guys are coming here? And Immaculate, we need to make sure that they know also, so we work on that. And no one wants to do a drill because it's too cold, it's rainy, it's testing, we're doing this, so.
Then you have an issue whereas you're okay, so you have a designated safe zone, but the problem is if the person that's doing the crime has accomplished and they're outside, are we subjecting these people to being in the
Right.
line of fire or transporting from A to B? It's a lot of questions that have to be answered. Like I said, I just wanted to start the conversation with a hello, I'm here, and maybe we can all work together and get something done. I mean, I can't create miracles. I just don't want to see the police department or the school board be in a situation where we're caught with our tail in between our legs. I hate to use cliches. If something does happen, how do we best respond to the situation? I mean, I've been through it a million times in Philadelphia. And Philadelphia's school police, by the way, are unarmed. So they're not very effective. They're okay. But for the most part, when something happens, an incident, critical in nature, then we have the police department, when I was in Philadelphia, had to respond anyway, appropriately, depending on the circumstance. But
All right, Chief.
Okay, appreciate it.
Thank you.
that's my spiel.
Just one last thing, I think because chief and superintendent have already had a dialogue prior to tonight, so Jim should be the contact person.
Yeah, I would think if we can look at securing the SRO grant, where the board would have, and we'll look through it now. It just passed, so it's going to be,
Right.
it's a year away. We would look at what the process is for the board to authorize the police department to go forward for the grant. If we receive it, then we go from there. But also, working with Dane Miller over at Amity, because he's on I think he's the president of the county group. We just had a meeting at the IU a couple of weeks ago. We're getting the chief involved with that. And our schools and over at the IU, because you weren't there. Well, weren't even invited, probably. I'm sure you would have been there and working on that, because Dane over at the elementary school is the president of the county. So we can talk. And get it started.
I think too, you know, the new year's coming up and the new committees are coming up, and I think maybe we should do some type of or consider doing an ad hoc committee that focuses on that, and maybe different funding sources or procedures, policies.
Because I see Dane, in his reports, you're questioning that glaze
I was with him.
for the glass.
Glass, yeah.
And so, but are we doing it for other schools?
Yeah, that would be.
Especially because Monocacy has those classrooms have that glass, right?
Well, it was any glass that was accessible ground level. So if there's a double pane, like in that door right there, it would be the middle glass, not the sides that you couldn't reach
Right.
around and unlock the door.
Is the school willing to contribute anything additional to the grant in the event that we get some type of grant, some type of amount? Would the school be willing to also contribute
Well,
some funding towards it?
I think we'd have to I mean, obviously we'd have to discuss it and budget it, but
Yeah, I mean,
I think it's
I think
fair.
that's something like you're saying. I mean, how do you hire an officer and then you lose the funding and then so does the guy? So and then Amy's not going to pick him up, right? So do you put the guy on unemployment for and then do you try to hire him back? And
Well, my
so
intent
that
is to
seems a little.
keep him on board as a police officer. It's concerning, like the Cops Ahead program back during the Clinton years. What after 5 years,
it was the
all these
you're
police
on your own.
departments were stuck footing the bill.
Yeah.
But my intent is to have this person as a full-time Amity Township police officer.
Right.
And I guess we would incur the cost. I don't want to say we, because I'm not the local government, but I'm just saying, generally speaking, we would have to incur some type of cost to maintain
Yeah,
this person.
we've gotten caught before where we started programs and when the money was there and then it was gone. And
Yep.
then so all of a sudden, okay, well, do we maintain the program or do we cut it? So if we're going to start it, I think we need to go with the assumption, if we can find a funding formula that we can split with Amity, that we know what we're on the hook for if it comes down to it, so that we can agree to it before we actually say yes.
I mean, I put in my budget, I'm hiring a police officer in January. Now, again, this is just me speaking out of context here, but I'm wondering if that police officer or another one of my police officers that are there could then become the SRO officer and still get this funding for some
Or if
other
you have to
related
hire
purpose.
a new one, yeah.
I don't know. There's and safety's perceptual anyway. Like initially, what I was thinking of when I first came here was, well, okay, we can't hire anybody. We don't have any money. Okay, fair enough. We can't hire anybody. What we'll do is we'll create a room in the school. We'll put Amity Police on it, and we'll have that police officer come in, check in during the day, put all the computer software in there that's related to CJIS standards, which is state police stuff, and have that police officer at least seen during the course of the day. The kids don't have to know he's only in there an hour a day and he's traversing from school to school. It'd just be a designated location within the schools that shows, okay, we have an Amity police officer. Hey man, I don't think you should do that. There's a cop that comes in and out here. They don't know when he's coming in or out or shape. So there's all different kinds of perceptual things that you could do to at least give the impression that the police are here 24, or during the course of the school day. But
To answer your question, I think you're here, there is some interest. The business office is going to be working on next year's budget now. So I think the full board would have to get together and talk and decide whether they'd be willing to contribute or not, but there is some interest, I think.
And just to make you aware, as a chief, there's been some instances where there's been some occurrences within the schools where we've received information late. So I just want to make everybody aware that if they could please just spread the word, specifically you, sir, in the event that there's occurrence, something that's questionable, whether there could be a violation of any law, please contact the police
ASAP.
immediately, because there's been times where we've received information days later, and it's like, and I'm not pointing at any particular individual, I'm just saying from a perspective of, again, liability, we're all liable in the grand scheme of things. So just that if there's an event where something occurs, we're mandated, especially these accusations of things of a sexual nature, because the county district attorney's office here is not playing games. And these child line notifications have to be made. These cases of sexual assault accusations have to be turned over expeditiously. or the DA's calling me, why hasn't it been done? So that's been an issue that I've had on a couple of occasions where there has been accusations of certain types of crimes that haven't been reported right away. Like, again, I'm not pointing any fingers, just saying generally speaking, we need to be on board as far as making sure that if there's something that occurs, even if there's a question as to whether there's a crime occurred or not, we'll interpret it from the police end as opposed to the school end and making that interpretation, because, we're technically obstructing. I mean, if you look at it from that perspective, so. But I thank you so much for allowing me to speak, and I'm sorry I disrupted your meeting, and hopefully we can move forward. I guess we'll communicate via email or something like that. And does anybody have any additional questions at all? Mr. Rathgab is my neighbor.
Really?
As soon as we get our floors open, we're going to invite you over for dinner.
Mining or?
Nah, it's great. Greatest neighbor in the world. No complaints, but Amy's great. Listen, thank you so much for having me. I'm sorry.
So house on the other side for sale, I mean, you're a
This
great
is
neighbor,
me.
I want to.
Yes, sir.
Do you guys have?
I have another one I got to go to the supervisor. Thank you.
All right. Budget.
Which one?
Well,
Actually, the 15-16 budget review,
Yep.
Linda alluded to. Of course, last year, we all know was a,
look, I came across the autopsy from,
last year.
Last year, yeah.
You told me to disregard that. I didn't go into that much detail. But last year, there was so much uncertainty throughout the year, and she alluded to the fact that this Ready to Learn grant, first they said we weren't going to get it, then they said we were going to get it, and then they said we gave it to you in January, but we're going to pull it back in June. Final analysis, we did get the $400,000 of Ready to Learn grant money, but there wasn't any specific expenditures earmarked for it. So it just rolled into the overall program for last year, and we got it. And so that was a plus on the revenue side. One thing I would point out, she was pointing out the local revenue
yeah, that was more
and the
more
state
of a,
revenue.
yeah.
That was the gaming revenue.
Okay.
Because what happens, we budget it up in
Yeah.
local taxes, and when we get final approval that
Right.
we're receiving, it becomes state revenue, and that's why you've got that $2 million, well, it's what, $1,199,000 a year we receive in gaming revenue. That's primarily what that was. I was
Okay.
going to jump in when she was making her presentation. But
Yeah, I think I always ask you that too, and when you put the budget down, like, why is
yeah,
that gaming there,
Kathleen
there, and
I
not
had
there?
that
And
discussion today, and moving forward, we're going to, we've always received the gaming revenue, so moving forward. we're gonna put
you're
it
just
on
making an
the same.
assumption if we don't get it, and so you always kind of put it in different. Yeah. Okay.
So anyway, and then on the expenditure side, there was savings in some of the salary benefit areas. Of course, when you have a savings in salary area, you have a corresponding savings with PSERS when you're playing with 30% PSER, 25% PSER, so there's some savings there. It was a mild winter last year, so Casey had some utility savings. We had electric savings because of the new arrangement with our co-op buy. So that's, in broad brush, that's a lot of the differentials there. We had $186,000 plus in debt service due to the refis, but that's how we generated what we did.
Okay. How about the student services? That was $100,000 under budget. Was that because we had some more revenue in that area, or is that because just wasn't as much money spent on
I'll have to get you an answer. I'm not gonna, I haven't dug into this in a lot of detail. I'll dig into that.
Okay, just curious.
Okay.
And I think we'd also, maybe, someone let George know down the road. We're kind of curious to see how those pass, how
Exactly. I'm waiting for a
how
report on that.
they've sold versus, probably won't know versus ticket sales till the end of the year, but. Did anybody else have any questions about last year's budget? How we compared to actual?
Well, I was just, because we always get the question, what didn't we spend that we said we were going to spend? No, basically, what percentage were we off? It was
I can do it in that summary on that.
roughly, no, we always get that question, and what would we have not have had to cut if we,
But usually the percentage is so.
it's 1%.
1%.
But they
Yeah.
look at the dollar amount and go, well, it was $700,000 and you could have had 4 more teachers. So,
I will point out one thing. First of all, my intent is, with the blessing of the committee, this needs to go on the agenda Monday night for full approval, because I need to post it with the Security and Exchange Commission on Tuesday in order to move ahead with Standard & Poor's and everything related to the potential bond refinance.
The audit needs to go on the agenda.
Yeah, the audit will be a resolution Monday night coming out of committee.
All right, well, while we're doing that, so, you know, myself, Tamara, Dane, and Mr. Martino, I mean, we all good with the budget? I mean, not the, I mean, with the audit?
I think it is what it is.
Okay. And you guys, I assume, are already taking care of that deficiency, right?
Pardon?
You're already taking care of that.
Oh, yeah. I wrote the paragraph on that.
Was that Mike or what was
I'm not going to throw anybody under the bus, but keep in mind who was responsible for Title I last year,
right?
okay? And I'll leave it at that.
Okay.
All right? But we addressed it
We
in
have
our,
everything resolved.
yeah, everything is
And the
in
files
place.
and everything.
One other piece, we got to get to the right page here. If you go to page 63, she spoke to it, just so there's no question. Because you could make a change on this if you wanted to. I actually did this when I had my preliminary numbers the day before we went into fact finding, and a big part of my presentation then was the capital needs of the district. Keep in mind, we have budgeted $150,000 this year for a transfer for this current year. Last year, I had earmarked at this time in the audit $500,000 for capital needs, and that was what we transferred for the roof project this past summer. I have earmarked in the fund balance this year $1 million for capital projects.
Yep.
Now, not to say things couldn't change if we wanted to, but that's the way. I just wanted to point this out to you. That's
Thank
the way it's earmarked in your report. Okay?
Yep.
All right. That's that. The capital projects funding discussion came out of the committee in September with the sale of equipment and vehicles. If moving ahead with what, I believe, Casey, you said you had a $26,000 muni bid on one truck?
26-1 was the highest bid on the last one.
2 of the trucks that the board had previously approved the sale of haven't materialized yet, so one of them will back on the muni bid today. But with the other equipment that the board approved the sale of, when I say equipment, grounds equipment, plus the $28,550 for custodial equipment from GCA. At the end of the game, if we move all of this equipment, including the 2015 truck, you're looking at about $140,000 received from the sale of equipment and vehicles. So the question was presented in September, where do you want these revenues posted? And that's why I put on here this, it was suggested that it become capital projects.
You're going to need it.
Do you want to leave it in general, or do you want to put it in capital?
I'd say capital.
Lauren, I think you said there were 2 trucks authorized to sell, and one didn't. What happened? I'll let Casey speak to that. That was the mini bid. I'm not involved. He was not-
When we had our meeting back in September, I guess it was, when the bids were finalized, one of the bidders had contacted me through the school district saying, hey, if it doesn't meet the reserve, can I buy it directly? So at that last facilities meeting, I said, I'll reach out to that one person, which I did, and we negotiated a cost, and it was approved, and that was the Dodge. The other two, I wasn't planning on doing anything with, because there again, I only mentioned the one truck. So through the last couple of weeks, been emailing Municipid saying, hey, can I get the highest bidder's information? No response, no response, no response. So I finally called the contact us number and went another route. You have to leave a voicemail message, thinking, great, I won't get a response again. Within the hour, I had a woman call me back, and what she said was, they have to reach out. They're supposed to reach out to the highest bidder. Then what they do is they contact the highest bidder. The highest bidder then either agrees to still buy it for that amount. Then Municipid still gets their 8%. So what happens is Municipid then will get their 8% fee, make a 1-second auction that's open, and then that person automatically wins the bid. So the dual-wheel Dodge, the gentleman that was the high bid said, I'm really not interested anymore. Haven't got a definitive answer for the Ford, and the white Ford, the gentleman is going to get back to them today, because I did the same thing with that one. I asked Municipid, I said, hey, reach out to him and, understand that it would have to be a board-approved purchase for the amount of $26,100. There's no guarantee.
Is
Just because he says,
that the new one?
that's the new one.
2-year-old.
So
But,
we,
right,
that's-
which
yeah,
one
so
is it?
we had a reserve of
The original.
30,000 on that one, is what the reserve was on that one.
So
So,
Municipid, who handles this for us,
correct.
and the bid's closed in September, and in 2 months they hadn't bothered contacting the highest bidder?
They don't, because at that point.
Unless we
it
tell
didn't
them
meet
what
the reserve
we-
unless we reach
Right.
out to them and say, hey, and there again, I didn't know what we were gonna do with the trucks, because they were,
They did not meet the reserve,
Can
They did
so,
not meet the
right.
reserve.
Can we listen on Craigslist?
We could.
So if
We
they
can.
hadn't.
Like, I mean, I don't know about you, but I mean, if I'm looking for a truck, I don't want to pay Municipid 8%
Right.
when there's other sites that, I mean,
so there's still other equipment that didn't meet the reserve, like the infield groomer and those kind of things. So that Lauren has offers from GCA on a lot of that stuff. I'm not sure if that.
We consolidated the tech ed labs at my last school. We listed a lot of the equipment on eBay.
that's what I mean.
We had a school district eBay account, and I had to post the descriptions and the years and
I mean, if you do the Reading area and even Allentown, I mean, like, you'll get hits on that truck.
I just say, I don't know that I'd want to let the new one go at 20, I mean, I don't know, unless you can't get anything else, it seems
Well, and
awful
there
low,
again,
yeah.
I just asked them. I said,
Right.
hey, while we're going through this process, and with the white one that ended and didn't meet the reserve, how is this handled? So that's where we're.
Yeah, they're
that's
not
where
going
we're
to
at.
give you the high bidder, because they want to try to still collect their percentage. They'll facilitate it.
So
for you.
luckily, the one guy had
Called you direct.
contacted me directly. And their site's a little, they want you to email them, but when you email them, maybe I clicked the wrong thing and was sent it to the wrong person. I honestly don't know. I finally called them and was shocked. Within an hour, my cell phone rang and, hi, this is so-and-so from Municipid. What may I help you? I'm like, wow. So,
The bunker rate was included
in GCA's. Yeah. Yes, I didn't remember what was all in that list, Lauren. I didn't remember what was
So
there.
what's our firm number right now? Of actual,
Total what we have, with the 2-year-old Ford, the oldest of the new.
but that hasn't sold yet.
No.
No, not officially. But
No,
if-
that
if-
ended on
if you
Sunday.
if you were to let it go for
26-1
whatever,
would be, is
it'd
the
be
bid
around
offer.
140, round numbers.
So right now, it's about 110, 115.
Yeah, I was at 111 at one point.
I mean,
Yeah, I would, before I'd let it go for that, I think I'd see if we
Well,
could
it
throw it
has
on
to be
eBay.
board
Right.
approved, and,
Yeah, if we'd throw it
you
on
know,
eBay,
Municipal made it very
Craigslist,
clear
or-
to the bidder, like, we're just asking if you're still interested in at 26-1. You know, it would be an 8% fee, the board would have to approve it on so-and-so date, and then voted upon, and so on and so forth, so.
But the 110 has been board approved.
Okay.
So you're still back to your question about where to put it.
Right. I just,
Well,
that was the directive from the board.
I would say capital. I,
I mean, that would be my vote.
I agree.
I think we're, sounds like we're in agreement, so.
wait, did Rich
That's
say
definitely-
okay?
Rich shook his head?
Rich, no.
Waiting to
This one you got?
do the,
With our capital expenses forecast over the next few years.
okay.
You already got it spent?
What's that?
You already got the 110 spent?
Oh,
And then
actually,
some.
It's just gonna cover like part of the roof.
I'll just get some more doors.
So do we
Scott
want
loves the
to
doors.
discuss
Oh, just.
bidding, whether we should,
I'm gonna encourage my son to get into the door business.
I'm sorry, what?
do we want to discuss further whether the stuff should be posted on other sites?
I would, I would
can't
recommend
see- I don't-
posting it on another site.
I feel very confident that if you posted that on
Yeah, me too.
a couple Craigslist sites, that you'd have, I've had personal success selling big ticket items on Craigslist
Oh, yeah. We
and
shipped
for a
out-
good price.
Yeah, we shipped out a 850-pound three-phase planer to a gentleman. It was on that pulled up from Texas on his way
Right.
home. So he bid on it on his phone on his way home. He was a truck driver. Pulled up, won the bid, paid the money, and picked it up on his way back to Texas. So, I mean, especially something national like that, there's always people that want stuff for various reasons.
How many bids did we
It's
have?
a young
on
guy
that
farm.
one?
I honestly don't know how many, I don't know how many there were. I didn't ask Scott for that. I just asked him where we ended.
Right, but I mean, it just seems like,
We just have to agree on what a minimum we would accept, so that Casey can handle it. Like if we said, hey, look, we'll take, our bottom line number is 28, for example. He could list it at 29.
Are we selling it with the plow too, or just, because I think I looked, and I don't know what it has as far as bells and whistles and that, but I mean, I just put in all the basic stuff on
That's all it has.
Kelly, and it was still like worth like 30, I think, just the truck.
No.
No?
Well, now's the time. It's got a plow on it. We're approaching winter. Like guys that are
Well-
getting contracts like the guy we had last night.
What do we pay for
He
it?
gets our contract. He probably has to go buy a truck. That's what I'm saying.
Blue Book back in September, it was 27,775.
All right, 27.
17,000 miles.
With the plow?
No.
That's
No,
not with the
that's
plow.
just
And that
the
was,
truck.
that plow's, is that one of
Well,
the
the
nicer
plow
plows?
installed is 6, but the plow as is,
It's not.
you're
It's
going to get
one,
about
yeah.
3.
I'm just saying,
Right,
I'm-
I'm just saying. That's why
So,
we
so
reserve
30 is a
it.
fair number
That-
for the
that's what we
whole
threw it in.
kit and caboodle.
That's what we have it at.
But if you say, look, we'll take 29,
Yeah, if he set the
he can
reserve
throw it
at
out there for
that's
30, see what
same
happens,
way.
and negotiate down to 29 and be done.
Same way you did the Dodge. Or you do it on.
And you don't have to pay any
There
fees.
was a local business that
Well, you made it.
contacted me on it, and I
Not
told
on
them to go out and
Craigslist.
visit it.
This is my
I'm
boat,
curious if they
24
did,
hours.
and if they did, you could call them and
And the
say,
dealer told
okay,
me I was only gonna get $10,000 for it.
Give me
And now it's
31.5.
13 in a day. I could have sold for more, but I thought.
You could tell the kid last night, we're not gonna pay him for 3 years, we're just give him a truck.
That's right. There you go. Not a bad idea.
I don't know if he's gonna go for that, but you can try.
Well, it's his own financing. I mean, anyway.
okay, preliminary 2016-17 budget distribution, that's why I call it a distribution. What I'm giving you, more detail to come. We received the building budgets from each of the buildings. We worked everything through, and so I plugged the numbers into the 5-year plan. So, just so you know what's included here, millage is where it is. I have adjusted, just look on the revenue side, that's pretty much flat. That assessment number that you see there at the top under local revenue for 17-18, $1,081,000, or $1,081,454,900. That's from the assessment office as of today. That's as accurate as I could get it. Something recent as of today, hold on here. That's not acceptable. I'll work on it tomorrow.
She could update this as soon as possible. Does this include the new contract?
Yes, yeah.
Everything's in here, right?
Yeah,
Yep,
yeah, that's
it's
over
highlighted.
there in that shaded area that you can't read. That it includes, for 17-18, includes the $500 step increase. Okay. Yes, support and classified. Any
Wait,
activity.
stick with the revenue. That's the
Okay.
first part. Is the plan con in here?
Plan-
And
yes.
is the bond refinancing in here?
Yes, Plan Con is in here under state revenue where it says, how do I list it?
I don't know.
Pardon? Debt service, yeah. I was looking for rental because that's what they call it. No, the numbers under debt service subsidy is your Plan Con money, but that is what we're obligated to receive, whether we've received it or not. So that's reflected all the way across. But so that's $655,000 number, and that's down because our debt service is reduced. When you get to the expense side, you'll see that. So from the revenue standpoint, that's as accurate as we can get it right now. We've done.
I'm sorry to interrupt you.
Yeah.
Rich asked the question if the bond refinance is in there.
Yeah.
What number did you use for the bond refinance since we don't know what we're getting?
I got a number from RBC as their best guess for the savings. We had said we wanted it loaded in the first 5 years of the new refinance. So that's the way I incorporated it.
Sorry, so you got the numbers from them at some point in the past when rates were X and they just gave you an estimate at that time?
I got it from them last week,
Last
before the election.
Before the bond market kind of blew up.
Yeah, yeah. And they did call me last Friday afternoon and said that what was 1.7 was 2.33 last Friday afternoon. So they said you probably are going to be glad if things go stabilize and go back between now and January 1st. Probably going to be glad you have your swap.
Just sticking with revenue for a second, the state's in trouble. The state is going to have a major shortfall in revenue this year. How does that impact us next year?
Well, the basic ed grant, you can see there, this year we're getting $8,235,000. I only took it up $8,000. Special education on flatline. Block grant on flatline.
Is the special education, like, is that a per capita type?
So it's a complicated formula
Okay.
based on identified students.
It's a secret formula. If they told you, they'd
Well,
That's killed.
But I mean, theoretically, it's based on the number of kids that are officially identified as. And do you forecast that?
I just flatline it based on last year.
Okay.
So
Our
I'll,
identification formula.
I'll bring this question up since I'm sure it'll be brought up down the road somewhere. So where in our 5-year are you putting in a potential $1 million from Birdsboro as a supposed number in here?
I emailed Birdsboro pursuant to their comments in public meeting and asked them to send me, and I can forward you the email. I asked them to send me the amount of increased assessment and the respective year when it will.
Well, it was in the paper this week, Grand Slam, $1 million.
Understand, but, and my response was, I'll get those numbers to you. When I receive those numbers, I'm going to incorporate it into the assessment, which will drive out the results based on the millage, with a footnote that this much is tentative as received from Birdsboro.
But these assessment dollars are right from the county, right?
These are, yes, but I
And they're
have,
part of the county.
right, right.
Right, but the county's only giving what the actual they will not, the county won't project assessment.
Absolutely not. When
They're
I'm-
only gonna
No
give
way,
you
they're
what
not
the
gonna promise
assessment
anything.
is.
No.
Right,
When
so
I-
I don't,
Yeah.
Did you get a chance to poke around a little bit with some of those buildings in Birdsboro that Mascaro has improved over there, as far as what their assessed value is?
No. If I know what name they're using,
Well, it's probably MB Investments,
I think it's all MB.
probably.
I did identify the official real estate transfer, of course, but I've got a folder up there waiting to hear from the assessment office when things begin to happen, when they do these partial increases to the assessed value.
And see, he's improved a lot of those buildings
I
over on
wonder
Main
if
Street,
we
right?
asked for, on Main Street, like 82, you mean, or you mean
Like-
724? Sorry, I don't.
Like,
Main
like the,
Street.
like the ones where all those old industrial buildings that are now occupied, like when you come in off of the new bridge,
Right.
you go
All
down
right.
on like.
Is that, does he own those?
I think
There
he
there
owns- I
has
think
been a
he own-
lot
I
of,
think he
I mean,
owns
there
all
has
that.
been a lot of improvement on those buildings over the last 3 or 4 years.
I think he owns all that.
I mean,
Now,
it
now,
looks
I'm not
much
sure, I'm not
nicer.
sure if that's part of the LERTA.
That's
Is that part of the
On
LERTA?
that same line, is that property part of the LERTA? Because if it is,
I think it is.
we only get 20% of the,
Well,
Right,
now,
right,
but
yeah.
for the first couple of years.
But
we
but
were-
but the question is, have they actually been reassessed?
Right, because if they improve them,
What the real value
no,
should be?
I'm talking about the $1 million they're promising us. Is that part of the LERTA?
No, that's not, that's,
Okay.
no, but it wouldn't pay tax, I think it has a tax break through 2018.
I
So
thought he said
don't-
1920 was the first year. we were
Right,
gonna
so,
get
it's through 20, so you're not gonna get anything then, but, well, the LERTA, if they improve it, they don't pay on the assessed improvement value, I think, until, for so many years, if I
well, yeah,
recall. But that-
it was a
that's been
five,
what?
it was a 5-year
It's
LERTA.
been 2 years at
So
least,
20,
right?
20% each year.
The LERTA was approved in 14, 5-year LERTA,
It's 19, okay.
and this project supposedly is to be completed in 2.5 years. So you're a year and a half, or what are you, a year and a half, 2.5 years into the LERTA right now.
Yeah, but the DREPC, the Delaware River Basin Commission just pushed that back another couple months, I think I saw in
Yeah, Lauren, let
the
me
paper.
ask.
And they can't do nothing without their approval.
The way Amity Township has their LERTA proposal written, theirs goes out, even though they're proposing a 10-year LERTA, it goes out 20 years.
Amity's goes out 20
So,
years.
so Birdsboro has a 5-year LERTA for any development, corporate development. They get 5 years,
Yep.
but is there a cap on that? I mean, was the LERTA itself expire in 5 years?
Yeah, I doubt it.
I don't think so.
Yeah. So, yeah, once your project gets done,
Started, then the 5 years.
and then it should be reassessed, then that's when that LERTA piece starts.
Let's see a clause in here that will somewhere like this Amity Curtis Birdsboro. Amity has that clause where it says it was out.
Yeah, I'll read it while you're doing the rest of the stuff.
So, moving forward then, on the expenditure side, salaries reflect any contracts approved. Retirement is what it is, next year at 30.25%, up from 30.03 this year. One area, the 500 area, I took up a little, and the reason I did that, that's where your transportation contract falls. You received 2 RFPs. The lowest of the 2 has, it's loaded on the first year. 5-year contract was loaded on the first year because of the additional requirements that we're placing on them for vehicle requirements. I presume that's why they did it. it's like a 14% increase over where we are this year, the final year of the current contract, and then it levels out around 3%. So I tweaked that because you're also, currently you're paying 30,000 round numbers for a transportation clerk, and that's going to be coming in-house, and it's going to become a salary position with benefits. So I increased in that 500 object area under other purchase services to reflect some of that.
Oh, excuse me, on the transportation clerk, what's the current transportation clerk salary?
We contribute roughly 30,000 to roads, new roads, and the employee, Ron Smith, is their employee.
What Ron's salary is, 60,000 or
I
30,000?
have no idea.
We don't know.
He works
He's
for new
he's there.
roads. We just contribute 30,000 toward the transportation.
So they might pay him 65, 70, 80 grand. We don't know what they pay him.
I don't know.
He doesn't work all his hours on us, does he?
I have no idea how they arrange it, but the contract just simply calls for the 30,000. It started out in high 20s and is governed by the CPI.
I'm guessing he doesn't make
prior
30.
December, and, he's their employee. I have no idea what he thinks. Okay. And the other big item, of course, is the debt service, and I did adjust that based on what RBC estimated. I did that all the way across from 17, 18 to the other 4 years. And the capital transfer thing. So, now, I say all that, this is the summary of where we're at now. We'll be forwarding you details, comparative details by building like we have in the past year, probably early next week now, Kathleen, so that you can see where we're at there. We also have done a preliminary projection on exceptions, as we did last year, and it appears that this year the only exception that we would qualify for would be the PSERS. Last year it was PSERS and special ed, but it doesn't appear that we won't know officially until we submit it to Harrisburg, but based on the worksheet. So I'll have that in the next packet that I said. Just roughly 200,000, represents 200,000. Index this year is the adjusted index is 3.3%, which would drive out roughly 0.75 mils fully to the adjusted index. I'll have all these factors thrown out there. Because I presume what you want me to do in January is present the budget as we finally did last year to the max, worst case scenario, early budget cycle, as opposed to saying we're going to stay under the index. Is that the direction I'm going?
Well, last year typically we typically do an option, right, where we have.
I can give you both.
Yeah.
Okay?
But is there any point in asking him to do both?
Well,
Is there any way that this board, given what we're looking at here and where the fund balance is projected to go, that we're going to say, let's come in under the index?
Option under the
Yes.
Yes?
Did you not sit here last year?
I just simply need to prepare the resolution.
Unfortunately, I did just.
I'll go both ways.
I'm curious, between the index and the exception, how much revenue does that generate
Well, if you had 200,000
for the exception?
exception and 0.75 fully to the index, it'd be roughly $1 million. Roughly $1 million.
Now, because we didn't go over the index this year, but I guess from my perspective, and I understand I'm just, but I don't necessarily see the problem in leaving your option open, because we don't have to, and we never have. But for some reason, we don't want to pass the resolution that says if we absolutely had to, we could. Like,
I'll put them both out there and
like so, me personally, you're asking, like Dane's saying, do you have to do both? Well, I would say no, just do the one that allows us to go above the exception. But I don't know that everybody here would agree with that. Some people might want to see the under the
I'd
index.
rather have both options, and then the board can take its
you'll have
take its choice.
the detailed
behind these numbers. I plugged it into the 5-year and looked it up to you. Can I also ask where we're at with far as discussions with River Rock as far as if they want to take this whole building?
They do. We haven't moved past initial inquiries because of other things that would have to occur.
Well, we would need to move admin. So I mean, if that's the case, then obviously most likely you would do it during the summer. So if we're going to do it during the summer, we would need to have that discussion, or to have that discussion now, so that we would know.
Well, it wouldn't be this upcoming, it would be the following summer.
Following.
Why couldn't it be this year?
We'd have to get sites ready, and also it would determine a lot of what happens with Birdsboro.
Well, I guess it wouldn't necessarily make sense to move and then move again the next year.
But administration would just move over to the high school, would they not?
Well, the two things we were talking about A, Birdsboro, B, high school. We had discussed two different possibilities, right?
Yeah, but I'm just saying, like, if you talk about those two options, either one you could do this year, could you not?
Right, we want to move to Birdsboro, and then if we decide to lease the whole Birdsboro, then move to.
That's my point. I
Right.
agree, but I'm just saying, like, if you were choosing between the two,
You choose
you
the one
could
that would be
still-
permanent?
I'm saying, like, regardless
Well,
of
if
the
you
choice
prefer to
you
go to high
make,
school, then
you could still do it this
why you
year.
can't do it.
You have the
Looking at these
space.
budget numbers, if you could do both, you need to do both.
Right.
Move out and then go to the high school?
And if enrollment allows you to phase out Birdsboro,
Enrollment right now does not allow us to phase out Birdsboro this year.
Right.
okay,
We don't have room for the fifth grade at all.
Yep.
Unless they come here for 1 year or something like that. But right, it was a 3-year phase out. That's
Yeah.
why.
I'm saying, but there's still space for the administration.
At the high school, yeah.
Yeah.
But we would have to look at, and we had done a couple of walkthroughs preliminary of looking at space and what it would take to get over there. And we were just being cautious with funds and saying, okay, well, what would it take? And
Well, the question is, what would we gain by River Rock taking over the entire building? What's the gain there?
renegotiating our lease. Because right now, it's just really a
Right.
space for, a seat
Yes,
for space at
correct.
least. We would have to do something financially.
yeah, whereas they're actually paying rent.
Right, because right now, the better behaved our students are, the worse deal it is for us.
All right,
Because they're not utilizing it.
We're good.
yeah, we
Well,
don't have issues
We
there.
make out in that deal.
so that would have to be worked out. But they are interested in this building and expanding what they do. They already seen that younger kids over here.
Yeah, they have two elementary.
Yeah.
I was gonna
About
s-
7, 8 total right now.
Yeah.
I said it, well, maybe we should really start those discussions, because it might take more than, I mean, if you guys, if you figure out what you want at the high school and you figure out the costs, and then we're talking with them and we determine what they're willing to pay, then you can kind of see if it offsets.
There was room for you at the high school 2 years ago, I'm sure there is now.
They're still at the high school. Takes some time.
I share an office with you, Jim.
Okay. I like the view.
I mean, you guys just have classrooms now. I don't think you did any modifications other than throwing some furniture in there, right?
It's the phones and the networking and
No,
the
that part I
computers
get.
and that kind of thing. But,
Unless you're volunteering to do that.
So I'm sure that they could get that done over the summer.
They-
We
they
need doorknobs.
They'll probably
Well,
need new
wait,
doors.
I'm sure they need new doors. There's no
Wait.
question about
who's
that.
gonna get that done?
we do, actually.
Who's gonna get that
Matter of
done?
fact, I'm thinking about getting into the door business. I think I might take you put a bid in.
So we don't lose sight of
You do business?
Holy mackerel.
of this year, the question we had. Birdsboro's LERTA says it starts in 2014. It doesn't show an end date. I think you need to talk to Sewers about this. Because Amity, the way, and you're going to talk about Amity's proposal tonight. Amity's proposal is actually, it's a 10-year LERTA that runs for 20 years, which means if somebody built something in year 19,
They get 10 more
they would
years.
get 10 more
Right.
years, so it runs 29 years. This doesn't say that.
It could be 30 years from now, they get 5 years. I would guess, right? I mean, if it's
But it
open-ended.
doesn't say it. This
I
just
thought
says
there was
it's a
something I
5-year
read in
loan.
the Amity, I said something about if you didn't designate a year, it would automatically, according to the LERTA provision.
Uh-oh,
Who, Amity's?
sorry.
Yeah, I know because they said 20 years. I thought,
Amity says this ordinance shall automatically terminate in 20 years following the effective date hereof, provided, however, that any taxpayer who has received or applied for the exemption granted by this ordinance prior to the expiration date herein provided shall, if said exemption is granted, be entitled to the full exemption authorized herein. So in year
Blah, blah.
19, you're entitled to 10 years, so.
yeah,
Right.
okay. I wasn't sure if the LERTA itself, as a general, had a automatic sunset year in it if you did not provide one. That's,
It's William Shakespeare's Pelican.
Okay. I have a question about this question. The ending fund balance for 2016, which we just saw from here, was almost 5.1.
But only 4 is reflected here because $1 million of it is restricted for PSERS, so it's pointed out earlier.
Okay, so
Oh, I-
what we,
oh.
I think for a couple of
Send a
years
little
we've
pad,
come
you're sitting
in.
there.
Under budget.
Yes. So why are we projecting that
Goose
road
candy,
number
no.
come down? I'm just asking what items have changed other than the pieces.
That has been the same.
They pull my teeth out.
I'm just asking what things have changed. That we have, are there line items that changed materially that?
And I think
That's
what changed
what
the
that
most
is.
was the business office. Seriously. The business office several years ago would make these projections, and every year would come in $2 million higher than what was projected. I don't think that's the case anymore.
No.
So I'm saying,
But that happened last year, right? I mean, Lauren did this last year. We came in under.
last year was a mess with Harrisburg, with the revenue.
And really, it looks like-
Last year was a mess. I'm just trying to understand what the drivers are that
This is far more accurate than the
have us, using up 1.4 million of the fund balance, that's all. Because the only material change is the PSERS, right?
Well, but it's the fact that we don't actually bring in enough revenue for our expenditures. We use fund balance.
if you think
To
the fund
balance our
balance
revenues.
is beefier, then we don't have to raise taxes as much.
So,
He's saying there's a big delta between the
I'm
year-end
saying
fund
the
balance and
revenue
this.
this year is the same as the revenue was last year.
right,
Essentially.
Okay.
So why this year are we eating the fund balance when we didn't last year? That's what I'm trying to understand. If the revenue's unchanged, what expenses have increased projected such that we eat 1.4 million of the fund balance? That's what I'm asking.
okay.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm just trying to, I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm not questioning the validity of any of these numbers. I'm simply trying to understand what has changed that is putting us in this position, because it's not clear to me in looking at it. Now, of course, I don't have the numbers from last year memorized, so
Right.
I just was wondering what the driver of that was.
I have another spreadsheet from my years or something.
All right, I don't need the answer now. I'm just trying to understand what generated the difference in result from last year. Like I said, I'm not questioning the validity of any of the numbers. I'm just trying to understand. Also, we had presentations on the tax collection, right? From agencies that said that they would do it for us and blah, 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 how they charged and what their process was. Did we ever follow up on that at all?
Yes, we did the other day. We met with him again.
Okay, I wondered if the board followed up on that at all.
He's waiting in the wings. All they will handle
Is
is the
future.
delinquent taxes
Right,
this
I
year,
remember that.
January 1, and we should be able to get a close number of what's involved there.
I think you were running some numbers on who was delinquent, correct? You actually did what they could possibly return.
I I'll get that from Mary Ellen and we'll bring that forward.
Just because it's a potential revenue for that.
Yeah, it's.
I don't know.
They're a little more aggressive on.
They're certainly
Well,
more
'cause-
better equipped to handle trying to collect taxes than we are.
And they're
Right?
right.
Well.
And they're making money when they collect them, so
Exactly.
they're going to
They
go
have
after
vested
them.
interest in collecting them.
You're comparing them to the county tax collector.
Right, which has no.
Because we exonerate our tax collectors and turn it over to the county in January.
Exactly. And they, and historically, I mean, I haven't been on the board a long time, but my impression is that they're less than overwhelming.
Yeah,
For the county?
Yes.
Well, they have no incentive because they're going to get the.
they're 5% if they collect it now or
I
3 years,
understand
10
that.
years.
So my point is just that it seems like there's potential revenue if you've got somebody who has the manpower and the desire to actually collect.
Yeah,
that
that group that came in, weren't they going to provide us with like sort of a sample or like an estimate of like, just show us your
They were
situation?
just here last week, and we're going to give them the numbers where we stand right now for the 2016 tax year, and what we estimate we're going to be sending back to the county, and they'll tell us what they can do.
Right, and that's, if I recall correctly, the people who had concerns about it were concerned about the fact that they go the sheriff's sale route, right?
I don't
That's
care.
Ultimately,
Very small percentage.
I understand that it's a very small percentage, I'm not disputing, I'm simply saying there were some people who didn't want the publicity as, we sold these people's house for money to collect the taxes.
That's why we met with them again. I was concerned that it would be, the school district has just seized my house and now it's selling it. But when we met with them, we went through all the steps that they do
Before you get there.
before
Yeah.
we get there. And I'm an ex-treasury investigator. I did the same thing. So I used to seize liquor license, homes, boats, stuff like that. So there was a window of opportunity to get out of that. I didn't want to go in, okay, you have 90 days to settle, or we're going to go in here and do a levy or judgment and seize your property. So he talked through it, and it's a long process, and there's many outs you can take. So we were very comfortable with that. So the follow-up with Lawrence, we're going to go back and run some numbers and get to them and show what the possible income could be from that.
And many of the properties that they end up going that route are vacant, abandoned.
Right.
That's why they're not paying their taxes, no one's living there.
Right, I mean, I think the consensus is, based on their presentation and based on the discussions that the board has had, first of all, properties that end up there are what you just described, right? They're already abandoned, so you're not really selling the property out from underneath people. And two, having a company that's actually actively managing this collection prevents the people who are gaming the system, which we know
Right.
that there's some of them out there, right, who know that essentially they can get a free loan if they just don't collect, right? And they're abusing the system over and over and over, right? And this theoretically puts a stop to that, right? So,
They pay 1 year to do themselves, find out.
exactly.
Okay. Lorda?
Amity Township, Alerta. Okay, Amity Township and Berks County have both approved a 10-year Alerta, as we were just discussing. And they're anxious for us to join in on the chorus. Their Alerta, if you reviewed this document that I emailed, speaks to a map that's included here. It's going to include everything on the map, but the definition of Lerta property is defined as deteriorating property.
So, I mean, basically, I asked Lauren this question yesterday, and we're not going to speak for Mr. Subers, but you seem to feel that Fox has no opinion.
Fox is concerned about this definition of deteriorated property, and in order for a property to qualify under Lerta, it has to fit the definition. But when you look at the map, it's pretty encompassing.
It's every commercial and industrial zone piece on the map, isn't it?
So
Well, I was gonna-
anyway.
I said that deteriorated property is really up to whoever's whoever's making the decision, right?
Well,
So you could make it be
if you
any
read
It is
this,
pretty subjective.
if you look at this definition,
Yeah, I guess the county is what they're doing, right? They approved it.
okay, deteriorated property owned by an individual, association, or corporation and located in a deteriorating area is hereinafter provided, or any such property which has been subject of an order by a government agency requiring the unit to be vacated, condemned, or demolished by reason of non-compliance with law, ordinance, or regulation. And
I mean,
And they
some of those are vacant fields that are being farmed.
anyway, the question is, if we're gonna put it on, I'll say two things. Put it on for a resolution, I need to know, do you wanna go with 5, do you wanna go with 10, do you wanna go someplace in between? And Brian will prepare the respective appropriate resolution for Monday night. And I've invited Amity Township to be represented by their solicitor and/or manager to answer some of these questions.
What's the benefit of doing it? I mean,
So obviously, you know, we know that Amity is one of the, I mean, we know that our district is one of the lowest represented in commercial and industrial revenues.
it's not the lowest in Berks County.
So obviously, they're doing that to try and spur individuals to now develop properties in the township.
But by putting that in place, the goal is to attract developers to come in to either what level the building or rehab
Well,
it.
no, a lot of the ground is not even built upon.
Right, it's just,
Open ground.
Farmland.
A lot of it's open ground. But they want a tax-generating commercial or industrial entity on that site. So they're dangling the carrot of saying, you know, we'll give you a tax break over a 10-year period.
don't most commercial ventures, like they come in and part of their compensation isn't necessarily in taxes, but you're gonna pay for the roads, the sewers, like, you know, all that sort of thing? And
Well, so the Exeter Commons, you know, they paid millions of dollars for that improvement off of 422.
Yeah.
For traffic. In exchange, they did get a tax abatement over several years from the district and the township over there. So yeah, they did that. They kind of swapped.
But they paid, the
They paid for that.
commercial paid for the.
Yes.
Yeah, so that I get, like,
If you look at Amity's proposal, they actually shade the areas of the township. And it's basically 662, 422, and Lime Kiln Road, because Lime Kiln has had a corporate park on the plans for years,
right.
but no developer will actually develop it. Having said that, I'm against the whole idea, and I'll tell you why. And I was, 2.5 years ago, I was the board president, Connor Kurtz was the board vice president, and Birdsboro invited us over to discuss the LRTA, the 5-year LRTA that's approved. And it made sense. And we were actually getting no revenue from a good part of the property because it was church property. So by them building on it, we'll now start to get revenue. What I don't like about Amity's, before Dave and I got on the board, before you and Dane were on the board, one of the biggest gripes Birdsboro's had is that there's a feeling that this board has catered to Amity Township as opposed to Birdsboro. And we give Birdsboro a 5-year LRTA. Why would we give Amity Township a 10-year LRTA? And to me, if 5 years was good enough for Birdsboro, 5 years is good enough for.
Yeah, I mean that's.
I would agree.
That's where I was heading. I wouldn't give him a tenure.
We were on the phone with Brian Supers and a member of his firm that handles this the other day, and it said, we do not have to do what the county and the township's doing. We can go They could have their 10-year LRTA for county and township taxes. We could go 5 years for school property taxes. So, I mean, that's, I just think what's fair is fair.
And you know, I mean, yeah, I mean, it's an enticement. I mean, if you're going to build a new office park or mall, certainly taxes is one of your concerns. But it's also, you know, infrastructure. You know, if you're building a warehouse, you got to have access to highway. You know, if you're going to open up a new restaurant, you need population to come and
But in
eat
the
in the
end,
restaurant.
even if you put the LRTA out there, you still need the township to approve whatever the venture is, which is what they haven't been doing. I mean, it's not like they haven't had any commercial opportunities. They've just declined them all.
Not necessarily. I mean, what they've done in the past is probably been a little too restrictive on their demands, especially along 422 with the road improvements that they've asked is millions of dollars for a deceleration lane so you can turn in there. Well, as you know, you go to Exeter, you know, over there, they
Lanes galore.
So, you know, are you going to spend $5 million for a deceleration lane here, or go somewhere else and build your property? So I think they've been a little too many demands on the folks who wanted to come here.
Well, but do you think? But is their plan like we'll give you the LRTA, then like that's where we're not. In other words, not $1 is going to come out of our pocket. We're just going to allow you to keep your tax money for 10 years.
I had called Amity as a citizen, and they claim they've changed the concept of their planning commission. No, seriously, they had like
I believe they claimed it.
they had a $2,000. What did they call that?
Traffic impact fee?
The what?
Was it a traffic impact fee?
Yeah, traffic impact fee. They've lowered that to like $800. They were very restrictive on signage, and they've changed that. They've initiated ordinance to change it. They just, I don't know if you've read or heard yet, but Amity just raised their taxes for the first time in about 10 years. And so they need revenue themselves. I think they'll be much more receptive to corporate developers coming in here, as opposed to more residential development coming in here.
Well, if you do the first one, you'll get the second one.
And in the, you know, the 2000s, you could be restrictive and you could ask for all that, and developers would give you whatever you wanted. You want a fire truck? You want a municipal building?
Right.
You want $2 million in road improvements? We'll do it. But now, you get all those ordinances in place, right? And now you have to take them back out because now it's just not cost effective for the developers to do it. And it is a mindset, and I've seen it in my own, like, well, we want this, and the developers just going, well, bye, because they can't afford it anymore. And so you have to get people to understand that they have to make money too, or they're not going to develop.
But I'm in agreement with you, Rich. I mean, I think 10 years is too long, but I'd be okay with a 5-year if it's going to turn a field that we're getting that's assessed at, you know, $10,000 now could be a $1 million building sitting on there, and then, you know, we start getting some tax revenue down the road.
Well, that's my other problem with 10 years. He used to say a business isn't
It's not going to make it.
and be gone before we ever get the 100% of the taxes.
We don't have another vacant building.
Not to put you on the spot, but do you agree with his rationale for?
No, I was thinking 10 years, whether it's fair to Birdsboro or not. I thought 10 years was too long.
I mean, I think it's a fairly easy message if we want to send that message as a board, right? To say that's what we did with Birdsboro, so that's what we're doing with you. Right? I mean, I think it.
I also think it's sufficient. 5
Yeah,
years.
I agree.
Agreed.
Very.
You can give them whatever rationale you want, but I mean, if it makes anybody feel better that
We'd like to
trying
be
to be fair.
We'd like to be consistent,
That's fine.
and we think 5 years is sufficient.
I agree with you. The points can't be made for Birdsboro.
I mean, with me.
Well, not with all of us, not just with you.
I don't think I think 10 years is excessive, and I don't think it's fair.
I agree.
Are you okay with 5 years? Or you
Yeah,
don't
we
want
did
it?
5 years, I mean, if we could bring in corporate commercial development, it benefits everybody.
How does that change the terms? Because it's,
So it would just be, it would be
10%
20% a year.
all right, so
Yeah, it's 24,
I just
60,
wanted to be
100.
clear that it wasn't only 5 years, but it, you know what I mean, that, but the schedule didn't change as well.
Yep.
All right, then I'll
So,
direct Brian to
tell
put
Mr.
a
Subers,
5-year
5-year.
You done?
Didn't you mention that there's also language in there about extending beyond?
Okay, that's fine.
It's 5 years.
It's pretty much easier for me and Jeff to approve everything.
Their
I get
learning
the same
plan runs
thing.
for 20 years. And I don't have a problem with that. I mean, if this ground's still undeveloped 20 years from now, we better be doing something.
Yeah, there's some females that do that.
But it still only, could only be 5 years from whenever it started.
Any more on the finance end before we move
We're
on?
good.
Okay.
Cheers now.
Well, it looks like we lost one participant
I
since we
have
went
his-
to, oh, you
I
have
have
his
his
stuff too?
info,
Okay. Do you want to give us updates real quick on, just what we had the updates on, and maybe we can cross that off? Oh, you don't have a, sorry, they haven't printed it, I'm
had my
sorry.
printer jammed when I got here, just trying to print these
Okay.
out, so I
It's,
didn't get much farther.
Sorry.
Sorry.
Yeah, unfortunately, we didn't have it.
Did they give you a photocopy or access?
Yeah, but for some reason it's not set up on my computer right, because I tried
Oh.
to print the good one and it said it wasn't set up correctly, so I have to ask Scott on that one.
Yeah,
So.
Gotta go to the floor, and it has printers, and then you just hit that.
It's DB3, right? The it's
It
admin.
says color.
Oh, I printed the wrong one then. I printed the old one. That's fine. That's all right. It's fine. Updates real quick. High school roof project is complete, 100%. Had my final walkthrough 2 or 3 Mondays ago. I don't remember the exact date. As I put in my weekly update to Jen, Tremco, who is the manufacturer who the roof project was processed through KPN, was very impressed with the workmanship of Sensenig Roofing, especially the foreman. If anybody wants to see any pictures, I took pictures of certain things. There's wear pads they glue down on the roof where you would bring up tools and stuff like that. The guy even cut the wear pads around the seam patches equidistant. I mean, the foreman we had was probably Sensenig's best guy. So he's very, and he did the entire annex part of the high school. He did Birdsboro Elementary back in the day. Tremco was ecstatic with the workmanship of the project. So they're in the process of getting the next phase pricing together for the remainder of the flat roof that has the ballast on it, and then the coating of the blue metal roofs that have the rust, which would be the library roof, the clock tower roof, and the canopy roof back by the gym. So they're hoping to have.
How many years are we supposed to get out of this new?
It's a 20-year warranty. So
How many more parts of the roof are there? I mean, like, if they price out this next part, and then is there?
this will be it.
That's it? Okay, then it'll all be done?
Yeah, 'cause
Okay.
the annex, I believe, the Giza contract there was 2007, 2008, so that roof was approximately done then. So that's a 20-year Carlisle roof. There again, we have a 20-year roof on this section, and then they will, with the metal roof, there's a coating they have to apply. The reason why it's been taking them so long to get a price to us, they are doing test areas, and what they do is they let it sit for 2 weeks. They come up and they pull it. The membrane should pull out of the glue. The last 3 primers they have used, everything pulled off the roof. The paint stayed, everything else came off of that. So there again, they don't want to sell us a product that does not
Here.
last. So there's some other primers that they have, and they're going to come back and do some more areas.
But
So
once the next phase is done, then we should be good till 2027 for the annex? If it was done in 2007,
The
it's
annex,
20
the
years.
warranty would expire then, yes,
Okay.
correct.
Don't, maybe it'll last longer.
Right, but I'm saying we shouldn't have to spend any large amounts of capital.
Major capital
till then.
expenses on,
Okay.
on roofs at that point, because Amity Elementary's warranty expires 2023.
What's up with the leaks over there, he said?
There's a leak that has been there for a long time, which I wasn't aware of. They actually had a tin can on a 2x4 above the drop ceiling that, of course,
emptied the
now
tin can?
overflowed.
I thought that was a plastic bucket.
Well, there's a plastic bucket on the one in the live library, and that's most likely a flashing issue very similar to the middle school. But since that's under warranty, the warranty claim has been called in. So, what's that?
It's plastic, but
It's
That's a good question. Somebody had to empty.
Makes less
that.
noise.
That's what I said, who emptied
They put
it?
a hose on it and had it going out the
Drill a
window.
hole in the bottom, and run the hose, and the gum around.
They put a plan on it, and it's,
so I'm just waiting for the warranty company to call me back to send out their contractor before I get somebody in to make any repairs. So like I said, that roof's 2023, and all the other roofs are newer. The door hardware upgrade at the annex, we purchased all of the new key cylinders and the hardware for the doors that have the old hardware. That was going to be done in-house prior to the outsourcing. GCA does not have anybody qualified that I feel qualified and competent enough to do the work, that we won't have issues moving forward. That hardware is actually in my office currently. I'm going to sort through it. I've asked GCA to let me know how they're going to handle this. If they don't get me an answer this week, I will be providing them contractors' names to call to set up an arrangement at their expense to have the hardware installed.
But that is their responsibility.
It is their
correct?
responsibility according to the contract, correct?
And I mean, that hardware was what, $23,000?
It was 22, 23 grand, yeah.
There's no reason to have it sitting around, and if
Right.
they can't do it, I just want to keep on top of it, because
Yep.
if they can't do it and they're not getting contracts, we need to go to Brian and say,
Correct,
what are we doing?
correct.
And we're in the midst of a number of issues with them, with Brian right now, so if you can't get a response by the first of the week from them, the holidays coming, and we all know what happens in December, that's the opportune time for them to do it, between Christmas and New Year's.
Correct.
I'll have Brian fire off an email to him.
I met with George Donald on Monday, who is, Doug Marino is our on-site supervisor. His boss is George Donald. If you remember, he was the gentleman here with the real deep voice I talked to one night. Talked to him for about an hour and a half on Monday. It was supposed to be about a 10, 15-minute conversation, and I kind of laid everything out with him, which kind of gets us to the GCA update with staff and equipment supplies. They are currently not supplying buildings properly with their staff with supplies, so we're still at the same point as we were before with them. They are scrambling kind of to fill paper towel dispensers, toilet paper dispensers, and they're moving items around and
Just
stuff
because
like
they
that.
don't have the supplies, or they don't have the
They don't
people
have the
to put
supplies in the buildings. They're not providing the staff, because what they do is they deliver to each building. GCA buys from a buying group. And therefore, I guess I don't know how their arrangement is with the buying group, but then that buying group delivers to each facility. When we were doing it in-house, we would have everything stockpiled at the high school or certain supplies at each building. They are not keeping, I feel they're not keeping enough supplies in the building to meet the needs of the building. So George is going to work on that with Doug in order to get the proper supplies in the buildings, so we don't have paper towel dispensers empty, toilet paper dispensers empty, soap dispensers, and so on and so forth. I had to order soap for them, 60 cases over the last month, because they didn't have a vendor. They didn't set up an account with the vendor for the soap that the dispensers we install. So then I ended up having to order it and then gave Lauren and Kathleen the invoices, and they're deducting that from their invoices. So, because we had literally buildings that didn't have hand soap. So, staffing wise, they're down to 2 grounds guys. One guy they fired due to various reasons, and we have 2 maintenance men. And I'm learning with the maintenance men what they're able to do and what they're not able to do. So they're part of the conversation with George on Monday was, he knows the work orders are piling up. He knows things are not getting done. He understands that if things need to get done, they need to hire contractors to get those things done. There again, the contractors have to have clearances to be in our buildings, because when they've had contractors in that have not had the clearances, a landscaping company, to do the courtyards, they did not escort them through the building, even though they were directed to do that. So I'm not even going to let them have the responsibility to escort anybody anymore. I have to have clearances on file for those contractors. So that was part of the conversation I had with George. So him and I will be doing a lot of talking over the next week or two to get a lot of these things resolved.
Are we relying on them to pick the contractors? Or
Not
do we
to a
have
point, no,
do we have an approved list that they can use?
Yes, yeah. I'll be providing them a list of contractors that have clearances in order to, and I also want things done correctly, not the old way. They're getting better on certain things. There's a lot of things that they just, what they were doing in the past was they would go to something, start it, if they couldn't finish it, they'd walk away from it. And there again, we need to get things done. So,
Casey, back to our conversations on this for the last couple of months. Keep me an email loop on these discussions you're having with your shortcomings, because just so the committee knows, they have not been paid for September and October yet because they have not submitted their labor report. Well, maybe the reason they can't submit their labor reports is they don't have the employees.
I talked to Casey because he gives me the weekly, what I sent to the board, the work order completion rate per week. And I look at it per week. And by this time, and I thought one of the questions I would have to answer from you all, which I haven't, because what's happening, what I thought isn't occurring, when you look at work orders per week, you bring in, and we talked earlier today, you enter 10 a week. However, at this time of the year, there may be 60 work orders, 100 work orders out there, so you're closing more than that 10 a week. So my stats would say we're closing 140%. And I expected someone to say, well, how can we be closing 140% of something? Well, we're not.
Right.
We're at a low of 21%, which is ridiculous. Like last week, not one work order was closed in Monocacy. Okay? So we should be well into the 80s, 90, 100% range, because the parts that they claim are on back order should be coming in. So just because the work order is open here, we've opened 3 here, but they should have things ongoing in other places. So right now, we're at the lowest point since they started in September, our closing percentage. And we've only had a high of maybe 40 or 50%, which is not very good.
But if they're saying they can't close work orders because they're waiting for parts or materials, that falls to us because the contract clearly states that we provide them with the parts or the components that they might need.
But they could be
Correct. In the
but they could be
beginning-
doing, what are they doing? Well, I mean, they could be
in the
painting
beginning,
hallways. I mean, that doesn't take any parts.
what they were
right?
doing was in the beginning, if they needed a
Stairwells.
part ordered, school dude gives you the ability to message me from the work order stating, hey, I need so-and-so part for so-and-so unit, here's the information. What they were doing is they were typing that in the description of what they did. Well, I don't sit there and read every description of every work order. So I'd sit there on the weekends and literally would go through every work order, and I was catching things. And then I'd message them saying, hey, do you still need this part? Because I believe these parts are in the basement or they're on a shelf somewhere. and that was a definite learning curve for them. They just
Well, sure,
weren't
they-
willing
yeah.
to do that.
I mean, they did, yeah.
So now they're doing that much better, and and we worked out a system that works really well.
Are they asking you first? I mean, like, it seems like somebody, before you put in the work order, why doesn't someone pick up the phone and say, hey, Casey, do we have any of these lying around?
And that's what they're not doing as well. Because as I explained to Jim earlier today, you know, a light ballast. You know, if GE makes it or Sylvania makes it, the part numbers aren't the same. Might be the same ballast, but the
Right,
part
right.
numbers aren't the same. Well,
But
they'll
you
just
heard
go and they'll
last
look at
night-
the part number.
You heard last night about the lack of communication.
Yeah,
And I
they'll
did-
just look at
and
the
I-
part number and
I
say,
did reach out to Doug on that. I was nice. However, I said, we've been getting notified by vendors that the expected response time from you is well below what should be expected in doing what you do. Now, my question is, are you meeting with Doug weekly?
yes. I wouldn't say we're having meetings. I'm having conversations with him probably 2 or 3 times a day.
But you should be going through the work orders and knocking these off. So I would expect next week, there's a big increase in their completion rate because we're addressing it this week.
Right.
And if it goes down, then that's a, Doug, I have to come back in, we'll have to talk.
And I mean, there's work orders, Doug, that I've assigned to Doug. I mean, I actually assign the work orders to their staff members. So Doug's not even in that loop. So I know it's going to the person who can actually make the repair.
But to Lauren's point, what are they doing then during the day if they're not doing the work orders? Now, I know you get into a building and Aaron or Preston go, hey, we need this done. So they're doing things off the work order sheet.
But they're
Which
supposed to
happens
be
all the time.
entering a work order for every single repair that they make. And I made that very clear to them that, hey, if they walk into a building and somebody says, hey, can you fix this while you're here? They're instructed to really say, have you entered a work order for it? Because if it's not a true emergency, I don't want them chasing red herrings all over the place on somebody's little pet peeves.
But also,
Yeah.
they should be getting credit for the work that they're doing. If they're not putting work orders, and
They're
just like
not
when
getting
Dane
credit.
sends me pictures of stuff, I take the whole thing and send it to you, say, did you put a work order for this? Did you let Casey know? If he says no, I say, shut up, follow the process, let Casey know, because you can't send a picture to the board on the report or to me without putting a work order in and giving you the opportunity to address it. Now, if it's been 6 months, then fine, send me a picture, a complaint, do all that.
So I understand. So, you know, Doug is our on-site GCA manager, right?
Correct.
The gentleman you said you were just talking to, I'm sorry.
George is
George
Doug's boss.
is our regional?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So they've been on site officially 5 months. So, you know, with the completion rate of what's happening, and, you know, we see stuff from some of the principals saying, well, you know, yes, this has been cleaned great by now, and this is not being cleaned, and, you know, I would think we'd have a contact with GCA saying, you need to get a management team over here, all hands on deck, get this stuff knocked down. You know, we're a new client, we're 5 months into a contract, and we're seeing subpar performance. You know, let's get one of your SWAT team over here, whatever you want to call it, and let's get this, you know, let's get something taken care of here.
The work, and understand too, the work order is only on the maintenance side. They're not on the ground side, and they're not on the custodial side. That is just on the maintenance side. So the issues we're having on the custodial side, you know, if you remember, Quakertown, I believe, said their changeover rate was about 35%. I'm going to say we're darn close to that, if not more, at this point.
Some of the turnover of the employees?
They're employees, correct. So we have a lot of staff turnover. A
Was
lot
there
of staff
opt-outs?
turnover.
Performance?
I've also, you know, had numerous high school stairwells. Everybody's heard about the high school stairwells that look like crap. Okay.
Well, and they've looked like that for a long time.
So I said to Doug, I said, before we do any painting in there, they have to be clean. They have to be clean. So he said, we cleaned them. They have to be painted. So I went in the custodial room. I filled a bottle with the cleaner that's in the custodial closet, found a shop vac, attachment with a little brush on the end. I sprayed the walls. I took the brush, scrubbed a little bit, took the towel, and they were clean. Spot was clean. Did a whole stripe on the one wall. Sent him the picture. Said, hey, these aren't clean. Went with him. Showed him. He sent staff in again to clean them. I went back. Still wasn't clean. Showed him again. I said, Doug, you got to have something to get in the cracks and the crevices to make it look much better. So he said they were cleaned a third time. There's still stuff in the cracks and crevices in certain areas. There's still Scotch tape on the walls and that kind of stuff. So it's a frustrating process for me because I constantly am having conversations with him, sending him emails. What training has your staff had? Because we were all told that
Oh, yeah, they're supposed to have
they're
that
going to have
monthly training and
all
stuff.
this training and everything when they come in here. I know for a fact that the young girl that cleans over here that they hired, she's excellent. She does a great job. But she flat out said, I was just given keys and told, there's your closet, here's the areas you have to clean. Luckily, she's doing a phenomenal job, but that's not the case across the board. So, and that's what I expressed to George. I said, you need as a company to come in here. I said, these are not Daniel Boone specific issues. These are just stuff not being cleaned. This is not something we're asking to be spit shine. We're asking for it to be cleaned. It's not being cleaned. Hallways. I walk down the hallways and there's dust bunnies up in the corners and all kinds of stuff and dirt laying everywhere and wrappers and gum and stuff like that. So I've been doing a whole lot more of walking and sending him emails saying, hey, I saw this. What I get is we'll take care of it. But what they do is they concentrate on that area then, and then there's other areas that are let go. So I'm constantly having to figure out what area they're not taking care of. Another one was Annex D wing boys bathroom. There was a stall that had white spots on the inside of the door. I took a picture of it. I said, I want to see how long it takes for this to get cleaned. That was on a Monday. On a Wednesday, I took the same pictures. So I said, well, let's see. Following week I went in, still wasn't clean. Met with George on Monday, and he goes, let's go walk over to it. So I took my phone out, and I said, now before you say it's new spots, here's the picture. I held it right next to the door. I said, it's the same spots. He goes, yep. I said, look at the date of that picture. I said, October 31st. I said, it's 2.5 weeks. It's now clean. But if they're not doing simple things as big white spots on the inside of the doors, what else is not getting cleaned? Kind of thing. So I'm hoping after the conversation George and I had was very good. We bounced a lot of things off each other. It was a very good open dialogue. So I'm hoping that we see an improvement very fast.
Well, also during the breaks, that's when the deep cleaning should occur. We're coming up upon Thanksgiving break.
Yep.
That Thanksgiving break time, just like when I yelled at everybody in spring break last year when everybody was taking off, and I said, no, this is when maintenance and custodians come in to work. We need to have a plan for that Thanksgiving break behind the doors, the deep cleaning, the polishing the floors, because no one's going to be in there for a few days. Our staff isn't doing that great either, and because there were dust bunnies and students were complaining, and they weren't. But we went with this group to save money. Maybe they need more staff. It sounds like they're not able to cover the areas that are
Certainly
needed.
the high school was not
Yeah, the high, yeah.
clean. We had ours.
And they're clearly understaffed relative to what they.
No,
Sounds
but
like
just
they need more staff.
them seeing issues and saying we need to address it is great, but they need to come up with a plan. Like, I need to know, like, what date is this going to be rectified? How many heads are you short? You said you were going to have this many crew maintaining our district. How many do you have? And what's the date you're going to have? Like, having a conversation with George once a month I mean, unless you hold them to a date or to a plan, it's pointless. Like, you're just going to have once a month. You're going to have a great conversation where George says all the right things, and then a month goes by and you're still dealing with it.
Well, look, it boils down to the on-site manager, Doug.
And I think we
Totally.
asked for a new one.
And that's, and
Is
that's.
he even here?
And that's the thing, I mean, you know, if he, you know, you gotta set a timeline where if we don't see an improvement from Doug, then we need a new on-site manager.
Yeah, your holiday breaks, Jim, shouldn't be to do cleaning that should have been done
Right.
daily or weekly.
That's not what it's talking
It
about.
should be a catch-up.
that's
It
not
should
what I mean.
be,
The breaks are when you bring out the buffers.
yeah, but I'm hearing about dust bunnies and gum and wrappers. That's a daily cleaning thing. Couple questions. A couple of years ago, when Ken Smith was still here, weren't those stairwells supposed to be painted with some special paint?
Oh, I don't remember.
It's what they call a pre-catalyzed epoxy,
It was
which
supposed to like repel.
the dirt will still stick to it, but what's happening is the dirt is now in the nooks and crannies of the block.
All right, so why can't we just paint the freaking stairwells and then start new? Because if we can't get the nooks and crannies clean,
You can,
then.
it's just they
but
need to
then
do
why
a
can't
better
we just set
job.
up a contractor to come out and paint in 30 days?
Well,
'Cause
then don't you have
McKnight
to
said-
prime it?
But, yeah, but they would do, but McKnight said he would shut down any stairwell
Why don't you
that
just
was needed.
go in there with the power washer?
Right,
That's what I
that's
was
what I was
gonna say.
thinking.
If the surface is dirty, paint's gonna
Gonna,
come off.
right.
So you might
Yes.
as well
It
get in
is,
there with a power
they
washer.
were using the wrong cleaner with the wrong brush. They were using a stiff bristle brush, which you can't use to clean block. Now they have them pretty well clean, and they are going to be doing touch-up on the stairwells this weekend, on the areas where the paint has worn through from all the book bags and that kind of stuff, so.
So the stairwells are clean now.
They're clean enough to be painted, yes.
Okay, so can we get them painted?
They're going to start working on touching up the areas that need to be painted this weekend.
So this
Just Doug and I had that
weekend,
conversation this morning.
so by Thanksgiving, the stairwells will be done.
They won't be repainting all the stairwells, but they're going to be touching up the areas that need to be touched up. Where the
Touching
dark
up
blue is
this much or
pushing through.
touching up that much? Like a dime size?
There's some areas, you know, where the dark blue has pushed through the light blue. But now the white looks white again, or Mary's Lamb as the color is called. The light blue is now light blue through and through.
Is
you know,
McKnight happy?
I don't think you'll ever make him happy, but.
Well, no, I'm saying, I
Right.
mean, he's a principal, he has
Yeah.
high expectations for his
Right.
building, I'm saying.
There's areas where there's the stain that is pushed through the paint. Must have been a stain underneath that they're going to paint and that kind of stuff. So they are going to start working on them on weekends, starting this weekend.
So McKnight will say, wow, this looks much better, I like it.
Well, I think his
Hope it
report
is.
did say that the sterols were clean.
We're looking cleaner or
Looking cleaner,
something,
yeah,
yes.
Let me ask
But-
a different question. You said this is a 3-year contract. If 3 months from now, we're still sitting here talking about this stuff not being done, is there an opt-out in?
Yeah, there is, but what do we do?
Well,
Because,
we're not going back
we
to
don't-
in-house
we don't have any
custodial
stuff.
service. What we would do is put out our
Doug
bids
would,
for
Doug would
somebody
not,
else.
the conversation I had with Doug and Casey, they said, Doug, your career matters, with this company matters, is that you were moved from wherever. I spoke to George before your meeting and said, you know, if Doug can't manage, then we need to find someone else.
can
Yeah.
And that's
can
a
we
little
find out
harder
if he was the
person.
guy that was in Quakertown?
He was.
So we're getting a reject
He-
because he couldn't do it there either.
He's the passive, I mean, he falls behind, but on the notes,
Then maybe he needs to find a different career.
or a different school district.
Well, he was
Well,
in a
right, we're gonna
different
pass him off to somebody else.
I don't care where he goes.
Where's their next new contract? Let him go
I
there.
think the power plant.
I have one more question back to the hardware for the doors. Now, as Tamara said, we spent $23,000, I think you said?
I
So
think
we
we
must have thought this was a pretty important issue.
Yeah.
If this hardware is just sitting there, can Supers write them a letter saying, if you can't do it, we'll get it done and bill you?
Well, wasn't part of their contract that they would do the hardware?
Yeah,
It's
but
in
they're
the
not.
contract, I cited it in an email.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying, but they're not.
We'll take care of it
doing
tomorrow, so we'll take care of it tomorrow.
But we also don't want somebody doing it that doesn't know what they're doing, because we just spent $23,000 on hardware. You know what I mean? So I don't want them bringing in the janitor to do it if the
We're
janitor
gonna
doesn't
give
know
Bob
how
a
to do it.
YouTube video and say, all right, here you go.
Well, that's what I do
Get
at
these
home,
locks
but.
done.
Don't knock YouTube.
I'm not. I use it all the time. However, I'm doing it in my own home at my own risk.
Casey, you said that you're talking with Doug, but that you're not meeting with him. Do you know if he's meeting with the principals? Like, it seems like they're really you're not his client.
They,
They're his clients, right?
when there's any issue of something that has not been done, Doug is emailed, and I'm copied.
Okay.
And then I will have a conversation with Doug about that. How are you going to address this?
I'm more concerned with the fact that if he's actually on site, so he's here,
What's he doing?
well, I mean, we're only, as we talked about earlier, right? It's only, the school district, as Police Chief Kenzie said, it's only 18 square miles. I mean, he's not very far from any of the schools. It seems like once a week, he can meet with all the principals and say, what's working, what's
He
not
doesn't,
working.
just so you know, he doesn't meet with the custodians that challenge him on things as well, even his own employees. He will avoid certain employees who have challenged him on his
I
managerial
think we
ways.
honestly,
So I'm just throwing it out there.
I appreciate the feedback.
You know, and unfortunately, you know, a fault of mine is that when there are things that need to get fixed, I get them fixed. I go and do them because I know it needs to be done. All right. So there's a lot of times where the other day I had a lift in the high school gym because the gearbox fell apart on the basketball net. I knew I couldn't have them do it because they're both afraid of heights.
So in that case, if they figure out you're gonna do it, they're on the phone.
Well, and I've been doing less and less, and that's
Then
why
they'll
the
be
work
afraid
order,
of,
that's why the work order completion percentage
ones
is
with
going
lights
down,
now.
because I've taken a step back and I'm not fixing things as much. But here again, I have the lift there in the high school. I saw a bulb was on in the high school gym, so I replaced it while the lift was there. So then I walked down to the annex gym, said, while I have the lift at the high school, I might as well check that out. 8 of 16 light fixtures didn't have bulbs in them. Well, now I have students in a gymnasium that's dark. So what do? I change the bulbs, you know, so.
Can we, how would we go about asking for a new on-site manager?
I called George and said, we want a new on-site manager.
I mean, that'd be my
I don't think
recommendation.
it's a process. I think it's pretty
feel so,
straightforward.
But,
They're a contractor, that's.
What I'm hearing is this guy's timid, and you can't manage if you're timid, you just can't.
Once
Well,
again,
it
we
depends on
gave
what
them-
you're managing.
Once again, we
You're
gave them,
managing
until
a
October.
computer, maybe you can.
I stood back and I watched and I observed
We
for a
gave, we
good
said
part of 3-4
October.
months.
You have time until October. So now we're a few weeks into November, and we're assessing things now, and you're saying, you know what, this isn't working. GCA's aware of it, you know, the higher-ups. So we just take it from there.
all right. Because my fear is, we're coming into the, like you said, the holiday break, it's the time to get stuff done. You got Thanksgiving here. So if we, you know, if we give him, we'll give him a month, or we'll give him 2 months. And if he doesn't get it done, we just lost 3 weeks of opportunity to get stuff done when schools are closed.
No, time's up.
Okay.
Time's up at
Okay.
Halloween.
And I think the conversation should basically be, you replace Doug or we replace you. I mean,
Right.
I would seriously go that far.
I
Either
mean, and
you-
Doug
either you
sat
play
here
him
in
or we'll
August
find
and said he'd be
somebody
here at every
else to do it
facilities
all.
meeting, and we
Yeah.
haven't seen him since.
I
I mean, he told us he'd come to the facilities meeting.
He said, I'll be here at every meeting.
You probably hear.
He
That was
also
the
said
last
the file would be
facilities
late,
meeting
but.
He meant
Or
every minute
anything.
of that meeting, probably.
Yeah.
Okay,
So, yeah,
All right.
we'll have to talk.
Okay. I don't, you have the list because I gave it to you, so.
I'll just go high school security concerns. I'll just hit it real quick. Preston has tasked Aaron with taking care of facilities at the high school. Aaron is doing a very thorough job. As they have incidents with students at the high school, he's realizing the coverage of the cameras that we currently do not have, or the coverage is just bad. So he went through with his laptop, stood in the hallways with the camera system, and was looking on the camera to see how far he could see. So as you can see, the green areas, the black dots are where the cameras are. The green areas is where you can tell, if you know who you're looking at, you can pretty much decipher who it is. The yellow area is the areas where you can't tell who it is. You can see somebody, but you really can't see who it is. So unless something happens pretty much right in the area, or they see somebody walking in that general vicinity, it is tough. They're continuing to have doors propped open. You know, he even did coverage of the outside parking lots, of where the cameras look.
All right, we upgraded the software there. We didn't upgrade cameras yet.
No, well, I had
That's
Berkshire
true.
Systems in on end of last week, beginning of this week, I forget what day it was, about replacing one camera, installing another camera, and we have 2 cameras that are currently installed, but the wires aren't connected. They must have used the wiring going back to the mainframe for something else. So they're giving me a price to upgrade those to an IP-based camera system, power over Ethernet, better resolution, as a trial. Because there again, we don't want to just have a salesman say to us, hey, this camera's going to be great, and it not suit our needs. So one will be outside, one will be on a long hallway, and 2 will be kind of close up areas. So I'm waiting for that. So
Can we use the Safe Schools grant for cameras?
Yes.
So like next year, we could apply for that for cameras? And do we really need $24,000 worth of walkie-talkies? I'm just
Cost
asking.
was 30, correct?
it's 30,
For what?
32. It's a district-wide walkie-talkie system.
Okay.
What they are is they're 7-channel walkie-talkies. So every building will have their own channel, and then there'll be an all-call channel. So if there is an emergency at the middle school, the middle school people will go to channel 7 real quick, hit the all-call just to alert everybody else, hey, we are having an issue. That kind of thing.
What's the range of?
The range, there's going to be a repeater on the middle school roof, and a repeater on the high school roof, and a repeater on Birdsboro's roof. Because of Birdsboro, the lower floor being underground, the repeater from the middle school is not strong enough to get the signal into the basement area.
So what does it buy us? What does having the walkie-talkie buy us? Doesn't the whole world have cell phones?
It's the security, MM&G security will use them at the high school, athletics, gym teachers going outside will have a walkie-talkie if there's any issues.
That is a problem.
And also our limerick drill, we're in the zone where we have to have a drill every 3 years. And Jim was only here
Every 3?
a short term when we had the first one. And all we're doing is making phone calls. What happens truly if the cell towers are down? We have no way to communicate for a...
People are outside of the buildings too. They're not carrying their phones and.
Right.
Is that something we would get bids on though? Okay, or is that like we just go out and buy it?
Radio maintenance owns the frequencies for the walkie-talkies. The guy was a genius about 35 years ago. He bought a whole band of frequencies that these walkie-talkies use. So if you don't go directly through him, he does all the county emergency management, all the police.
It's like the emergency management
Yes.
system.
Yeah. So, we
you're in the wrong
did test,
business, right?
we did tests of everything. We had people at all the buildings doing the walkie-talkies. We tested through the buildings and everything.
Because we just upgraded our radios and they were $7,000 a piece.
Yeah.
And you have to have one for every vehicle and every car
Right.
and every
And
person.
they're not,
Yeah,
they
so,
don't get the police channel. That's-
right,
it's all
but I'm
down.
just saying,
It's
so
our
I can,
own- it's
so
our
I can
own-
only
our
imagine
own
what,
band.
yeah.
Bandwidth.
But the good part is this was budgeted, but now
Right.
it's being paid for
Right.
only with a grant.
Yeah.
No, I'm just.
And the nice part
It's
too
a
is,
nec-
I mean,
think it's
George is,
completely necessary.
and part of it is, when we had the event Friday night with the Army, we borrowed radio maintenance walkie-talkies. It was so nice being able to actually talk to everybody if we had an issue with something. When we use our walkie-talkies, they don't work. They don't work. And the other part is, as long as we have this installed and the invoice is done before December 31st, we get $500 for every walkie-talkie we hand them back, the ones that ours do not work. So we have 15 or 20 of them that we'll be able to hand back. I think it's 15 or 20 that we'll get
good.
$500 a piece
There we
for.
go.
So,
Woo, making money.
So it covers the grant. covers
Early
the
Christmas.
cost.
yeah. So,
Well, and I think, I mean, I know we wanted to come and talk, and I'm sorry that he didn't get to stay, but
That's
I
right,
think,
he's a
I mean,
mercy at home, so.
honestly, the camera project is really something we want to look at as capital overall,
Correct.
so I think we just kind of roll that into, I don't know that it's going to get any done faster, because.
he had everything done, and he
That is-
and,
that is
you know,
nice.
he
That is a
wanted
good-
he wanted to talk about it and kind of explain some of the issues that they're having with kids and stuff like that.
We can
which
have him, I'll have
I
him
don't
come to
know.
the next one.
Yeah, I don't know all the
I'll put him
details that are out
first.
there, but
Birdsboro?
the masonry issues at Birdsboro, I believe everybody received the report from Lauren.
Oh, I
for
think
the
he might have
insurance
just sent it
report.
to me.
sent it to you.
Sorry, was I supposed
I think it's going to be all 81 pages.
to? I read it too, it was,
Yeah, what we have is there's 2 bump out walls at Birdsboro on the first floor. They're a classroom wall. With the way the building is built, the deflection of the steel structure is pushing on the masonry walls, causing them to crack. They actually broke a window in the one classroom. The window frame is all racked out of whack, and it broke the one piece of glass.
Design flaw?
Is that from the leak at the stadium? The water went from the Birdsboro and now it's going into the earth? 'Cause
well, you
that
can
was
say it's a
solved
design flaw,
a
but
couple
it's
problems.
That was solved.
30 years old, so with it.
So, we had an insurance claim, they sent out their adjuster, then they sent out a forensic engineer, and provided an 81-page report of his findings.
81-page report saying denied.
Yeah.
Lawrence,
I'll
you
send
summarize
it,
that.
I'll send it to you in
interesting
case you have
part-
trouble sleeping.
The
one
interesting
night.
part of his report is when I was there with him, I said, "Do you feel this poses any immediate danger?" And he flat out said no.
We want to show
And now, on the report, he wants to have shoring installed ASAP. And from what I've been told from staff that's been here way before I was, these cracks have been there for a long time in these two classrooms. The one is just more centered in the beam, and the deflection is more, so it's caused the crack to get larger faster.
Yeah, but I mean, we're gonna have
So
to,
we're gonna have to get
gotta do
the
something with
wall.
it if you're gonna use
Luckily,
it,
it's a
continue
non.
to use it. Especially if you're gonna,
Let's see, do we use these classrooms?
What's that?
Do we use these classrooms?
Currently, those classrooms are shut down.
Okay.
Well, because they told us, were they shut down
Yes.
before, or only because we told that they told us?
We've had them shut down since the start, before school started.
Okay,
So,
See, when this originally came to me, it was possibly snow-related from last winter. So I filed an insurance claim.
okay.
The insurance claims adjuster came and said, no, I don't think so. Called me and said, I think this is a deficiency in construction, blah, blah, blah. I'm going to bring in a structural engineer. And I said, bring him on and send me a report. I got it. There it is. But the insurance company couldn't do nothing because it's not insurable.
yeah, it's a.
So then we need to get prices on shoring ASAP, I guess,
Correct.
basically.
it's not just shoring, right? I mean,
There's a rebuild involved, but we can definitely get it short. I mean,
Well, do we
the
have to
shoring would
shore
just
it
be.
only if we're using those classrooms, or to use the build, do they feel it has to be shored to use the building in general?
It's from what it
the
says
wall
more, if you're
collapse
gonna
is
use the
there and the
classroom.
classrooms.
There's one piece of block that has a big crack. So, if we do anything, I would say we get somebody in just to frame that up, just to make sure that piece of block doesn't fall on somebody. That's all.
Okay,
So, and that's a minimal cost. That's just gonna be some 2x4s and 2x6s and some plywood, and
GCA could do it. I'm just kidding.
I prefer not. So, I'll get somebody in to get that shored up. Like I said, there'll just be some Tapcons and some plywood and some 2x and that kind of thing, so. Camera upgrades, card access, that's a capital discussion. You guys have heard the card access, it's 160 or 180,000, whatever it is. I have another vendor coming tomorrow to look at it as well. So we'll see where their number comes in at. Door replacements, the high school would like to start using the courtyards more with their students, but they can't because of the old doors that are rusting and falling apart. So that'll be another conversation down the road. I received pricing on that. The building automation system upgrade, it's a Windows 7 program. Luckily, Trane has come out with a Windows 10 upgrade that they said they were not going to do. So the $60,000 proposal I discussed earlier a few months ago about getting to their web-based new system, we may be able to delay for a little while. So I'm waiting for Trane to get back to me on what's involved. And that upgrade is at no cost to us because that's included with our agreement with them. So facility software, as we all know, facility use is getting the forms through the school district is a problem. Forms are getting misplaced. Some are taking a month or so just till everybody gets everything to sign it and stuff like that. Excuse me. School Dude, who we use for our maintenance software, they have a facility software program. It's like $4,000 or $5,000. I looked at some other options. There's a company called Master Library, makes a ML Schedules app. Sat through one demo with them. Lisa Kiki and I sat through it. The second demo I sat through with Scott Matz, just to make sure it would work on the IT side, and any questions he has with that. We were very happy with it. This company is probably in business a couple of years. They're kind of entry level, so the cost is much less. It's $2,400 for the whole year. They gave me some references. I talked to Warrior Run School District. I actually logged in as a community member and went in and tried to use it, and it's as user-friendly as they say it is. They just signed Easton School District, which is 80-some hundred students, and we need to go paperless with the facility software, the facility use software, without a doubt. And after talking to various of their references and talking to various other school districts, everybody who uses School Dude is looking at other options because School Dude is starting to price themselves kind of out of business to a point. And I would like to go with the software. Implementation is going to fall on me. Management's going to fall on me. We're hoping that if we can do this, to have this up and running by January 1st. So when Christmas break is over, all the residents know they need to go on the website. What's nice is this company provides demos, videos that you link to your website. So if you don't know how to enter yourself as a user, it's a step-by-step process for that. It's a step-by-step process on how to reserve a space. The one school even said they use it for their field trips. They've made their buses a room more or less, and that way and what's really nice is what we'll be able to do is the requester will put the request in if it's a space in the building principal approves it, we're good to go. If there's a custodial need, the custodial supervisor will then be emailed with the needs of setup or anything like that. The invoice can be created directly from the site for Lauren's office. Everything is fully automated. The gentleman at Fairview or Fairfield School District, I forget which one it is, talked to him for about a half an hour about it. He had a paper system, same as what we did. It hid 6-7 different people in their offices, and he's had it up and running since June 1st. He goes, "In Casey, I've had 0 issues." He said, "What's nice is if there's something we see that we want tweaked, we call them and they add it." They're their own programmers. They're their own managers. Their customer service has been great. They told us if we need multiple demos, not a problem. They'll continue to do it with us. But we definitely need to get the thing up and running. The other part is with School Dude being $4,100, Lauren, I think it is for the maintenance side, $4,000 somewhere in that neck of the woods. I'm going to ask School Dude if there's a credit if we get rid of their maintenance side of it, because this system integrates work orders right out of it. So if there is a projector that has to be installed, the work order will be created and sent right to Scott Matz's office. So that way it's all together. And we can get both modules for almost the cost of what we're paying for the work order module now. They'll lock our rate for 5 years at today's rate, flat rate for 5 years, and then there's no more than a 5% increase for as long as we have the software program. So if we're looking at $4,400, $4,500, you're only looking $225 increase the next year, the next year, the next year. So, and they said that will be for the life of it. So, you know, it's
How do we schedule the fields and stuff now? Is that, I mean, I assume,
Schedule Star
George
is
does-
George does
okay.
that now. So what this company is doing, they're working with Schedule Star to integrate.
okay,
Schedule Star is very independent when it comes to that. So he is trying to work with them just that they can just send him the information. They say, he goes, listen, I don't want to replace your system. I just want your system to send me the information so it's already in. I talked to George and Kathy about this. They don't have to put in all the games. All they have to do is say, I want the middle school softball field 42 from April 1st to June 30th, Monday through Friday. So it's one input for them. It's not an individual input for them. So we really don't see any flaws with it. So there'll be some tweaking of the 30% application fee. Our thought was that when they apply, the way it'll work is instead of making the payment when they apply for the space, once the space is approved, that invoice will be sent directly to them.
Is there a way
For
to
that
integrate
application.
a credit card into that?
PayPal, credit cards are on there. They have a PayPal link for it right away. So
So that would include, like, if, that would include we're now adhering to the policy of if it costs us X amount of dollars, it costs you X amount of dollars. Like, how does that,
the labor for the custodians will be right in there. The fee schedule for the space, if we're going to charge $100 for a gym usage, that will be inputted in there. So once they reserve the space, it will detail the costs. And if there's a question about cost, then we would have to go in and just, we'll get a notification that the request is there. And what's nice is you route everything based on who needs to see it. You know, right now, you know, Jim and I are signing things for a cafeteria, you know, usage for a Boy Scouts meeting. You know, we don't need to see those kind of things. You know, we both kind of, here you go, and on it goes, because we know there's nothing we really have to do. This way, that would just go strictly to Preston if it's the high school cafeteria, or Melanie if it's Monocacy's gym, or whatever. And then it's all web-based. Everybody can see it. It's color-coded, so every facility has its own color. So you look at the master schedule, and it'll show you everything. It was a very nice system.
The only thing that we really needed, where I'm getting the most calls on, when we have activities back to back, like graduation last year and the car show the next day in the parking lot. It seems that we go, okay, we had an event, we'll get to it later to clean it up. But sometimes our facilities are used back to back, and especially if they're large events, like the
Carnival.
cadets coming in.
Yeah.
And then there's a cheerleading event right after, or a wrestling meet right after, and not being cleaned and staged and ready to go
Right.
the next morning bright and early. So those are the calls that I get. Hey, we showed up and it was a mess. Well, we had graduation the night before. Well, there should have been, or no, after the game, you mentioned it up. There was no one at the game cleaning, because there could have been something right after the next day.
right.
And that's the stuff that we're missing.
Right.
And I'll be honest with you, I don't have a calendar where I keep track of every facility use. You know, if George is saying the facility is available, that's all he looks for.
Right.
Am I using this facility? If
He's not looking-
he signs
right.
it, and he doesn't look at the logistics involved, as Jim just said. So,
So this would help in doing that, I would
Absolutely.
assume, right?
If there was a calendar you could look at and say, hey, you kind of prepare your staff for that, and you may have more people on that night to clean, because you have to get it ready for the next morning.
I mean, to me, that honestly, I mean, that amounts almost inconsequential, especially if you are can swap one for the other.
yeah, and the time we're spending is well over.
Right, I mean, it's
Also, we will
$2,400
have-
or whatever.
We had a meeting today with the Student Information Services Company. We will be saving money by consolidating our programming for next year. The program that I saw today takes away about a half dozen other programs that we use and consolidates them into one program. So they were quite happy with what it is.
So, okay, I will move forward with that then. I will start getting that rolling so I can work on it over Thanksgiving break and start getting the rooms in and stuff like that, so. Other than that, I guess.
Okay.
I
Oh,
have-
yeah,
And
okay.
he knows this one, well, a couple. Getting the buildings assessed,
Yep,
we need to get the buildings assessed. And I guess we can do Birdsboro last, since it to the earth. And we also need to get our grounds assessed on our property lines. We're getting calls from communities about trees being overgrown and things, and he's going out and saying, hey, this may not even be our property line.
Oh, so we don't have surveys.
Surveys, yes.
do not have I have old 19, like for Birdsboro, I think the last drawing I could find was 1983 or something like that, or 85 or something, so.
Hasn't changed, right? Still-
There's
still the
there's,
same.
I couldn't find any pins. I'm trying to measure on the drawing and
Well,
go out there,
there.
and measure from catch basins and telephone poles and
Get a middle picture.
Because we have some overgrown trees that are over someone's garage in Birdsboro, in that corner lot in the back. And they're afraid that over the winter it may fall. So when he went out to check, he said, this may not be our property, but we don't know.
I had a lady call me yelling at me because we didn't mow the bank. Well, when I was out there the other day, I said, the bank's not even ours, the bank's hers. But
They may have always
Harry
done it.
Amel always mowed it as a favor to the neighbor, but technically it's not
Oh, if it was for
ours.
21 years, we can file a claim now, it's ours.
You know, so it just,
Past practice.
so I provided Jim
Or we expect a letter, thank you.
appraisal quotes with two companies, with appraising the two buildings in question, or you need to go to certain people who do that. So I provided that to Jim, and I'm waiting for the surveyors to get back to me with estimates.
Survey needs to be done. We need to know which property is ours. Because people are asking for things and we're
Right.
waiting. We can't say, well, we don't own that.
Right.
Because the drawing I have for here says there's steel pins out here, and I've been out there with a steel rod, you know, in a 6-foot square area trying to find a steel pin. I can't find the concrete block. I can't
Don't
find
they
anything.
put those little
So,
concrete?
there should be a concrete pier, but
They,
Tombstone out there.
they don't all,
Right.
they're starting in
Or
the
people
last
remove
10
them.
years. All right, so, the last stuff Casey went over was like future capital stuff, so I guess what I would ask is, I mean, does the committee, I guess that'd be me and you, Jeff, but I take input from it, where do we want to focus, I mean, capital projects? I mean, if we feel security is a main concern, then, I mean, I guess we have to look at camera upgrades and card access in the doors, but we're probably looking at,
Didn't we have, you had like the Thompson study you had gone through and like he had assessed it was this much, like by his estimations.
for
Yeah,
security,
For, you know,
everything.
everything, like the security thing's probably ours, that's just an add-on, but I'm saying, as far as things that are gonna be required over the next 5 years and then over the next 5 to 10
Oh, yeah,
years.
he had
structure.
Yeah, he had, so, but I'm saying, like, you had said that, like, he said, hey, this piece of equipment has 5 years on it, and you said, well.
that was the other study with the reserve study.
The
Yeah.
reserve study is a 40-year deal, we've got the architect study.
I'm talking about the Thompson study that it broke it down like 0 to 5, 6 to 10.
Yeah.
And you were saying, you know, I think we had talked about this a while ago about, you know, your view of what he's saying, and like some of the stuff you can't comment on because it might be an architect, right?
Right.
But what was your
Well, I mean,
priority?
It seemed to me that, I mean, I'm not a rocket scientist, but we should focus on the stuff that we know is going to be causing more damage
Well,
down the
right,
road. that,
the roof at the high school.
Right,
Of
that
course,
was-
you don't have a choice. The front sidewalks at the high school, I've never gotten pricing on that because there again, it's going to be way over the thresholds for anybody to do. So I've asked Kate. KPN has what they call an Easy IQ, which is a contractor service that comes in and provides you pricing. So I have them coming in to provide us pricing for painting the sidewalks at the high school and the bathroom remodels at the high school. But the front sidewalks at the high school, I don't. After this winter, you're going to have to do something there next summer. You're going to have to either do blocks, the blocks that are bad, just jackhammer those out and piecemeal it. You're going to spend a lot of money for doing that. You're going to be better off just taking care of the front of the high school, because there are some sidewalks there that are progressively getting worse.
Well, and to me, that's a liability issue as well.
Correct.
So that's something that should be a priority, because if somebody falls or trips or gets hurt,
That's what I'm saying, like, do we have the summary of all the things?
Well, I gave Casey, back in January, the committee, we've got the same thing just for capital. Needs to be in lockstep with this 5-year plan.
Yeah,
I met with Casey 2 weeks ago. He's putting together, I told him the first year has to be real numbers, priorities with real numbers.
yes.
And then moving out the other years can be estimates such as he's
Right.
getting from this other firm. But we need to keep that in front of us.
when we're doing
The
that.
same as we're doing with this,
Right.
so that we're constantly
Yeah.
updating it. We can move stuff from column B to column A if necessary, and it'll be a forecast because we've got the capital transfer in this now that'll go over to that, and we'll just move with it. But this first year's got to be accurate and prioritized.
So what do we really have? We have the 110 if we're transferring, that's capital. We have the 150 from last year. Did we have anything else? Or do we just
Well,
have that 260 plus the million that we're going to transfer next
Well,
year?
Right now, I'm not sure what the balance is after the roof job. I didn't see the final number. You've got your 150, it's budgeted for this year, plus what I earmarked with the year end.
Got the million. Okay. And the
Yeah,
roof was
110.
last year?
Yeah, the
Like, is the
cash.
roof being paid out of last year, or is the roof coming out of that?
It's being paid out of the 500,000 that I had available. In your financial report, you have, we transferred it on June 30th. You have how much was the roof job, Casey?
520,059 or something like that it was.
Okay. June 30th, you had 624,000 in your capital projects fund. So if you spent that much on the roof, plus some other items, doors.
There were
I
some
think-
doors that I think that you
We're
had.
pretty much depleted against that 624. So now you're
Okay.
starting out with 110 plus your 150 plus.
Okay.
We have 1.25 million.
That's why I think we need to have a list of like, what do we have to do, what do we want to do prior to.
And that's what you do with this 5-year plan,
Yes.
because you.
Because while we might like to put cameras everywhere, we might not be able to, we might not be able to.
Well, then, if there's grant money that's tag it as like, hey, we want to do walkie-talkies. Well, to check, because that's grant money. We want to do this, that's, you already mentioned the more doors. I mean,
Right.
that seems like it's just like a never ending, like doors just need to get replaced. Then there's the transformers you had talked about.
Yep.
That's got to be up there on the list, right?
I would think.
Because
yeah.
didn't we do
The
an
energy
ROI
audit,
on that and say that,
Yep.
hey, if we got rid of that, then we're going to save X amount of dollars?
And I haven't finalized that because I keep adding a couple of things to them, like say, hey, while you're doing this, how about this, how about this? So we've been kind of adding some things that were outside the original scope.
I'm not on the facilities
It's
committee,
okay.
honestly.
I value your
Yeah,
opinion.
today, I
You're on the
appreciate
finance.
that. Does Casey have a discretionary thing that,
Not really, no.
Well, no, I mean, technically,
Like-
yes, if it's under a certain amount,
Like $5.
you just put in,
Like 20
no,
cents.
well, like, what is it?
Daily
Don't you need a PO to go to Ace
Daily maintenance
Hardware?
now. What's that?
Don't you need a PO to go to Ace Hardware and get screws or something?
Come on.
Kind of like walking.
No,
Well,
but don't, isn't there
it's a
certain
procurement
things that
card.
don't have to get
Now it
approval
is.
that he
Yeah.
just goes to Lauren and says,
Maintenance thing.
Normal everyday maintenance stuff, I'm buying as we
Right?
need,
Normal
yes.
maintenance
Yeah.
things, but
Yeah, but project-wise,
capital
no.
improvements.
okay, but I mean like,
there's a dollar limit.
like the
though.
doors to the courtyard, that's not really capital improvements. The doors are already there. It's not like it's not like he's coming.
But if you're replacing it, it's an ask, technically, it's a one-time expenditure as opposed to a,
Routine maintenance.
right, is it yeah.
Other than that is capital.
If you're painting the door, that's routine maintenance.
Like,
Replacing it's
case in
not.
point,
But
case in,
replacing
Wait till you
a door
ask-
that
ask him how much it
exists
costs to
and
replace
doesn't
those
function
two doors in
anymore
the-
Isn't routine, I mean,
Well, it depends on the
it's
cost.
not a capital expenditure. The door's not a door anymore if you can't open it. I mean, it's.
But
You
but
can't
you're
lose
saying
560,
it depends
it's
on
not
the
driving.
cost and how the process is of purchasing that.
Well, and then is it, can I fix the door versus replace the
You understand
door?
the point that I'm making. I just like, it's not like he's asking to cut the wall open and put a door
Right.
where there isn't a door. There
Well,
was
some
this
of them-
door that.
But some of them have to happen that way because they're old and they can't.
I understand that.
And
the
it
doors
is,
of the
that's probably
gymnasium,
well
right?
above
the
his
door, yeah.
The doors of the
budgetary
gymnasium had to be
authorization.
replaced, and those
Find the crane to
required
come in and
completely
move
new
the
jams,
door,
which
put the
means
door
they
in.
were, you know, whatever, 7,000 apiece or whatever it was.
I'm just trying to understand what sort of
Sometimes
Just
stuff.
to
we
let
are
you know,
too.
Right, I mean, like,
The last facility meeting, I came to him and I said, listen, no offense, I have to spend $8,000 on new doors, which are the 7 doors that were installed today. There are 2 pairs of storage doors, there's a door to the washer and dryer for the teachers, and a team room door that had a padlock on it.
I can bring my lunch.
Granted, I don't have a discretionary fund, but I more or less said, you don't have a choice, kind of thing.
Yeah, yeah.
Here's the cost,
Sports supply.
they're ordered, you know, kind of thing, because I didn't have a choice. We had
That's in the contract.
tens of thousands of dollars worth of stuff in storage rooms that could have gone leg, so $2,000 worth of doors was cheaper than,
well,
you know.
the
so.
reason I'm asking is
I
it
asked him
seems
for
like,
allowance, he
Do you
told me
approve
how
that?
much.
it seems to me like you should have some. I'm not saying it should be, you know, 100 grand, but it seems like there's some
I mean,
amount.
there's only a certain dollar amount that has to go to board approval, right?
That's
So I mean,
not-
maybe your standards for doors are too high.
No, literally, I got the cheapest doors I could this time with no hardware. I didn't reuse the door closures and everything.
Can I ask a couple of questions?
Uh-huh.
Then? All right. So, I know I know the turf field is on your radar,
Mm-hmm.
and I know there was discussion about trying to cut down some of the use. Is
Correct.
that gone into effect?
Correct. We did minimal work this fall to prepare the grass, just because of everything else that the money was being spent on, with the roof and everything else. So George and I have had conversations about limiting the youth football use of the field.
Yeah, because I mean, youth never, when it was grass field, all the midget games were over at the middle school.
Right.
They
They
I mean,
played
and then when
one-
they
the
put the turf
homecoming
in, they would play like the one big.
Right.
Right.
The end of the year game,
End
kind
of the
of.
year game.
Homecoming or senior night or whatever,
Um,
graduation.
But otherwise, there was always.
George and I have been
middle school.
having
Yeah.
conversations on and off, and in regards to that, on how we're going to proceed. And he wants to see where
They changed it.
his numbers are at as well.
They changed it when my kid was still in midget because right after my kid got out of midget, that was probably like about 5 years ago, maybe.
So is that probably after like the gas left? and-
Probably, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's nice to them to use it, but
But there's a cost to us, right.
yeah,
There
exactly.
were
And they don't-
fields
we
that
don't
you guys
charge
were
them.
gonna-
Right.
There's areas we're gonna
Develop a little bit, right, and get them
we're gonna
for
fertilize.
practicing.
We aerate them really hard in the fall, so come spring we can overseed very quickly because we'll have the root base will be opened up, so it'll take a lot faster. So
I had one other stadium question, and I know when we redid the stadium, and correct me if I'm wrong here, but I believe as part of the budget, the bathrooms were not included,
Correct.
and
As
then
part
that
of
was
the
a
original
donation.
contract.
That was a donation that they got to do that.
No.
No.
The bathrooms and the concession stands were taken out of the original contract.
Yeah.
The concession stand was a donation by the boosters.
Right.
The bathrooms we actually bid out
Okay.
and built, the school did.
Because those bathrooms were not done low budget. I mean, if you've been in there, those sinks are already falling apart. Kids leave them running all the time. That's in a couple of years is going to need to be. I mean,
Low budget, it
gonna
was
be-
like $500,000.
that was
the stuff they put in there is stuff you use at the house,
Right,
not the commercial grade stuff that needs to get put into these places because they get beat up.
that was going to be part of the turf replacement. Was kind of my thought. If we can keep that together for another 5 to 7 years, that when the turf is, I know I'm trying. I put new faucets in and stuff, but it's
Can you, I don't know, like, can you actually reuse that, I don't want to call it a building, that
That's-
shell and just put in like heavy duty sinks.
The
and
problem is
toilets
that
or
the
something?
shell of that is a modular
Or-
built
yeah.
shell, so it's
Maybe we
It's
could
showing
ask
its age.
BCTC if the kids could do
Yeah,
a
built new-
bathroom project.
Get some of those Boy Scouts in here for some badges.
Now, I have a meeting with George and a local business, to talk about what they could do with us next week. So we're working on the stadium Monday.
Yeah, I know he wants a new scoreboard, but I think there's other,
Stadiums.
And I'll just
Stop.
give you, if anybody has
Yeah, he
been
wanted
at
to get
Wilson
somebody-
School District at the Wilson West Middle School in the last couple of years, they built that bathroom facility there. If you go over there, just take a drive over there sometime. That was $300,000.
Well, maybe get Mascara to sponsor the bathroom.
there was,
That's who
Give
we're
a
meeting
scare
with.
the sconce.
Just giving you,
It's a waste management company, it makes sense.
Yeah.
That's who we're meeting with next week. We have a meeting with them.
but Gettysburg had 2 bathrooms, and you go in there and they have everything's automatic. You know, so and there's no well, it's all hair, you know, the
And the unfortunate
Power
part, the
dryers
automatic
and-
faucets are $300 a piece.
yeah. But at least you know the kids aren't leaving the water on all the time.
I believe it.
You know,
I bought 21 of them.
you know, and we got the
Last
kids.
year, so-
And then the kids, you
Slowly
go in there
getting
and the
in.
kids got the waters on. There's paper towels all over the place, and I'm like, what the hell?
All right, any other questions on capital stuff at the moment? All right, and then I just passed this out. I mean, you guys can have copies too, but at the next facilities meeting, I'd like to talk a little bit more. But Jim had put together a draft. I mean, obviously Casey's job's changed a bit since he was hired. I don't know that anybody really knows what his job is, but but Jim did try to put together an updated job description. The only thing I think that I was not sure of, I thought in the assistant business manager job description, we also had put, or there was something in there about responsibility for transportation contracts, so I don't know if that's a duplication of service, but maybe we just want to look at that, but,
We looked at it at all the things that were contracted
okay.
under one
Well, then I guess it would come, but then I guess that would come out of her job description, or the assistant business manager job description.
Who's since you know we're getting rid of the scheduler with roads, right? And we're bringing that
He's retiring.
we're bringing that in house.
Oh, he's retiring.
So
Oh, okay.
There's no possibility of us getting him.
That's
He'll be
okay.
69. and he's retired.
I'm gonna have to work till I'm like 80. Why can't he?
So are we? Is that being taken over by somebody, or is that intentionally be a new? I mean, it's not a full-time spot.
Oh,
right?
it's a full-time
It's a
spot.
full-time spot?
Oh, yeah.
Ours, like just for us? It's a full-time
He's
spot?
doing what Ron's doing now, it's a full-time spot.
But I mean, does Ron basically spend his full-time job doing Daniel Boone?
Yeah.
Doesn't do anything.
And we only
anything
said, and we
for
only
as
give
far
them
as-
$30,000 for
The
that?
routes down, I mean, how much
I
more
don't
do you do?
Why is it a full-time job? I mean, you gotta set the routes up. And periodically, there are changes to the routes, but what do you do 8 hours?
Because he essentially is the dispatch guy. If there's any problems on the buses, they radio, he responds, he calls.
But that's
We
an
would be
hour in the
dispatch
morning.
guy. That's still the bus company's responsibility. They dispatch their buses, not us. That should not be a full-time position.
There's a job description in this.
I was gonna say, before Rhodes did it, I mean, like when my daughter was little, I think it was Lisa, right? Lisa
Yes.
Buskowski.
Yes.
So I would assume we had a job description of that at that time, or some type of
She was not
description.
the dispatcher.
And I don't, but she's a resource we could at least talk to and say like, what did you do? And I don't know if it was a full-time job for her at that point in time or not. I don't know. I just,
If you're doing the dispatch, then yeah, but not just the route.
Now, when Lisa did it, she was not the dispatcher. Sally Rhodes was the dispatcher.
Yeah, if you're just, I agree with that, but if you're just doing the routing. it's not
So,
full-time.
but I guess the one of the other things I noticed too, and Jim, maybe you can just kind of tell me what your thought was on this. Like, recommending employment transfer, promotion, discipline, and dismissal. Would that be recommending to the, in this case, GCA? Because he wouldn't really have any direct personnel, would he?
How did we looked at it, I wrote it up, Lauren tweaked it, and I had something in there that Lauren took off. Maybe that was it, because he said you wouldn't have direct supervision because it's contracted, and I said, well, what if we bring it back in-house, any of the food service, maintenance, or transportation? I put it in there, but I think he took it out. When he revised it, he tweaked it too.
Okay.
And I said, just because we ever bring something in, I don't have to change the job description. The ability to do it is still there.
Okay. And then I would also ask, I'd also ask Casey, have you've had a chance to look at this?
I've seen a version of it in the past.
Well, I would ask for your thoughts too. Because, not saying that necessarily things will get changed, or you get to set your job description, but when you were hired for a job description, you knew what it was when you took it. I'd be interested to see if we're changing your job description, what your thoughts or concerns are, because it's not being forced on you, but we are changing it. So I'd like to know what you think. I don't think that's out
If
of
his
line.
expectation today is not managing people, I don't know that I'd want it in the job description.
Right.
Just because,
Right, and I think that was
Like, I-
out.
And I have your version. If Lauren
just saying,
said
like,
that,
that's-
I don't have that one.
if things change and then he has to, 3 months from now, you might have, 2 people.
When I came here, I had 39 staff members
Yeah.
to manage. So managing the people is not a problem for me. I've thought about this because Jim and I have talked about this. I don't have necessarily a problem with taking over the extra responsibilities. My big concern is what we've accomplished in the last 2 years that I've been here. I don't want to see get thrown away by an outsourcing company not doing their job. I know what I came into on the facility side and how much of a mess it was. I know what I got it to today. Not that it runs seamless, things always break, but my concern is, that if these responsibilities are thrown on me, I'm now an office guy. I won't be out there with tools on, making sure things are being fixed the right way and that kind of stuff. So we're going to be really relying on the outsourcing company, and that's where you guys as a board come in saying, are you comfortable with that? That's not my decision. That's your guys' decision as
Well,
a
I'm not
board to
comfortable with
say.
that if Doug's the guy.
Right, this is based on having a strong,
On
Nutrition
site,
Inc.
right.
Correct. I get zero issues with Alonzo.
There's what
I
you-
get zero. I mean,
There's what is how you-
other than his office is cold today. I gotta go figure out why it's cold.
But there's how you plan the
Yeah.
job to be, and then when you're creating a new role, oftentimes you say, I believe this is what you're going to be responsible for, and then as you start to do it, things pop up that you didn't plan for that you have to either own or let go of, like certain responsibilities. Like, I don't think it's a great idea for you to be climbing up on lifts and changing light bulbs. Don't get me wrong. I think it's great that you did it. This district, obviously everybody appreciates it. But I'm saying I wouldn't want that to be your responsibility. Like, I would want you to be responsible for holding GCA accountable for changing light bulbs. And if they have height aversions, well, that's their problem.
They gotta hire
That's
someone
not our
else.
issue.
Right.
Like, get someone over there who works in a single, is there a building that's like a ranch style where they don't have to go above 6 feet? They can work in that building.
I think,
Like, you know what I mean? Like,
But
I think,
Unfortunately,
yeah.
when you guys were on the board when I was hired, and one of the major conversations that we had when I was hired was I was going to be a hands-on supervisor, and that was one reason why I was hired. I truly believe that. From talking to people that because I've done it for 20-some years,
especially with the
and
HVAC systems.
and
and that kind
it
of
is,
thing,
when you're hands-on for 25 years, it's hard to turn that switch off. I'm getting better at it. I'm getting better at walking away from things, because before I'd go to my truck, get my tool bag, and I'd come in and fix the toilet, or I'd fix the urinal, or I'm getting better at that. So like I said, it's
As you get older, you'll get even better.
Well,
and it's just I am a hands-on person.
but
that's the way
I do
was
have
taught
this
by my
concern,
dad,
and I don't know how you can address this, but hopefully Jim has some thoughts too, since he's been this. My concern is that if GCA doesn't have people that are qualified to do the maintenance on the systems and if that stuff's not done properly, in the long run, it costs us money. So how do we ensure that they have qualified?
Well, but
people?
that's where his expertise does come
Right, but
in.
he's saying
Like,
they don't.
He doesn't have to grab his tool bag and fix it. But the fact that he knows how to fix it means he can hold them accountable. And he can say, I know that you didn't do it right because I know how to do this. I can go up and fix a roof. I can go change out a light bulb. I can go change a door. I know how to do all of it. And I know that you're not doing it right and that you don't have the right people. If we had some other guy in here who was great at managing but didn't know any of this stuff, GCA would be running all over him. They wouldn't. You wouldn't know any different. You'd just be like, I don't know, Doug's never around, and that's my grief. But Casey's expertise. Although again, you want to be hands-on. The hard part is sort of curving that to just be the SME and the expert on how the stuff's done, and take that and hold them accountable so that we can address stuff immediately, like the door locks.
If they mess something up, and there's major, I don't know, they mess something up on a heating system because they did something wrong or they plugged something in different, and the heating system shorts or goes or whatever.
There's provision.
Is that us that we have to pay to fix it?
There's provision in the contract.
It's the same way that I'm ServSafe certified for food handling. I could go into the kitchen and tell if they're holding the temperatures of food correctly, if they're preparing things correctly, if there's cross-contamination, because that's my expertise is food and
Right.
things like that. I've driven a school bus. The moment we found out that a student was left on the bus, I said, well, did he not turn off the alarm? Like, well, how do you know about that? Well, I've driven a school bus. Now, I've never fixed an HVAC system, but there's certain expertise that you would have to supervise that, like you're saying, I don't have to go behind the check. I mean, if I check it, if it's not at 170, it's too low or too high. You're not cooling it down properly. There's techniques and things that you can't get around me on because I have that expertise, just like he does.
Right.
He doesn't have to be.
No, my concern is
fixing
just what happens to because
They're responsible.
because
They're
we're responsible for our equipment and our machinery and all that. So, I mean, just like if the bus driver crashes the bus, insurance might be paying for it, but if we're insuring the bus, it's
Well,
it's
just
our
like
cost.
if Nutrition Inc. serves foul food, we're responsible, but we have to hold them accountable for it. So we do checks, and that's what the position would be: is to go in and make sure that they're doing it to the contract
And make sure they're doing it right.
and doing it correctly. Yeah.
Like, hey, you can't change the locks because you don't have anyone that knows how to do it. So either you find somebody in 2 weeks and get them clearances and get them in here to do it, or we're going to get a contractor to come in who can do it, and you're going to pay for
We
it.
take it off your invoice. That's
Right.
what we're doing
Well,
now.
and I just think that if we're holding him responsible for those things, then we also have to give him the authority to say, you know what, light a fire under George's butt to give us a different, or whatever. He
That
has
would be
to
my
have the
expectation of his
authority
position.
to be able to do that.
To talk to George and go, George, you got 2 weeks.
Right.
2
Yeah,
weeks.
really, you're in a spot to be an SOB.
Right.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
Less
And that's
hands-
less
unfortunately, it's
not how I
less hands-on, more
manage,
SOB.
but,
That's what you need to.
Less on the ladder.
You gotta
Right.
you would hold,
It's not-
if they
it's not
reported
my
to
style
you
either, but
and it was your team, you would be holding them accountable and you'd be pissed if they weren't doing something right. It's no different except now, if they can't do it, then if they can't figure it out, then we'll go get a contractor who can and who's professional, knows what they're doing, and they're gonna get charged.
Like, for example,
You do that 2 or 3 times and
the whole water main break. You shouldn't have been in the backhoe, driving the backhoe. I know you like it. I want to get in it because I would have issues with the back. I've had issues with backhoes, but you shouldn't be in it. The company should be in it, doing the work. You don't need to roll your sleeves up. I mean, if you want to get into it, fine it and monitor it, but you shouldn't be digging the hole and them standing around watching.
if you're doing it because you wanted to
Right.
do it, that's one thing, but like if you're the only guy who can do it, that's a problem.
That's a problem. You need to be training them and getting their skills up to speed to do it. not just get out of the way, I'll take it over because you
See, I don't even know that.
And the unfortunate
that's
part
really-
is,
that's his role.
I stand there,
That should be
I stand there
GCA's role.
saying, I don't have any other contractor I've ever hired that I have to watch, that I have to babysit. You know, if I call in Pagoda Electrical or Berkshire Mechanical or Levan Excavating or Captain Clog, I call them up and I say,
Captain Clog.
Captain
Yeah.
Clog.
It's a shoe
I
company.
threw that out just for Mr. Rathgeb there.
I love that. I listen, I'm like, what the hell is this bill, Captain Clog?
But, you know, I
And what
call
was
them
it
up
that caused that
and
clog?
say, I call them and say, I need this taken care of. I don't have to go over and hold their hand.
That's why
AG
you're-
Mara with the doors today. The guy calls me and says, hey, I'm at the high school. I got him in. I said, you need anything, Dean? Nope, I'm good. See ya. I stopped back on the way to Birdsboro, was there for 10 or 15 minutes. All okay? Yep, doing the last door. Okay, see ya. I'm not used to having contractors I have to babysit. I've always hired contractors who I knew were qualified and competent and could do the job, and I didn't have to hold their hand. Unfortunately, I spend the better part of my day now double checking GCA's work, and that's grounds maintenance and custodial, not just maintenance. So there's a lot less time for me to do the typing end of my job and stuff like that. I mean, so that's why I'm here at 5:30 in the morning when nobody can call me and nobody can bother me, so I can catch up on things, you know, because I know I have to be out there making sure they're doing things correctly. Sensor faucets, I'll give you this one. Bought sensor faucets for Amity Elementary School, $300 a piece. Had them change out old ones that are discontinued, I can't get parts for them, so I had to put new ones in. Bought Sloan because Sloan doesn't change their stuff. He told me he needed parts. I ordered the parts. After I ordered them, I'm like, that's not right. I go down, get up in the ceiling. He told me the wrong voltage. He told me everything was wrong. So I spent 2.5 hours with him, training him on how to install these faucets and make sure the electrical's correct. If I would have called any other plumber out there, I wouldn't have had to do that, you know. And GCA should be hiring people that can do that kind of stuff. Or, as I said to them numerous times, don't tell me you can do it if you can't do it. GCA is going to get a bill for $345 for a pump seal that their guy said he could change, and he destroyed it.
See,
So
now,
now
as
I
long
had
as we're
to,
documenting that,
Yeah,
because
right.
they push back on, well, why are you taking
I have the parts in my truck.
But we need to document the conversations, saying,
Yeah.
hey, this was assigned as a work order, you couldn't do it, this is the conversation with you and
Right.
Doug, and then this is what we're going to do as the action to your inaction.
Right.
And then it's fine on the billing side, you know, so that's
Yeah.
what we need.
But that would be is that our responsibility for Casey to train their employees to do
No.
it? Because in my mind, it's GCA's job to train their
But
employees.
it's his job to follow behind them to make sure it's done correctly.
Right.
And if they're not doing it correctly, then he needs to document it, let Douglas know. If that doesn't work, you go to George.
It's
And we
Casey's
take
job to
action.
figure out whether they have the expertise to do it, and we can trust them to do it, or they don't, and he needs
No,
to
it's not.
find someone else to do it, and
Okay.
we need to bill them, right? I mean,
That's my opinion, yeah. I
Right,
just
that-
want to,
Yeah, no.
Okay.
His role should be.
And you know, if the conversation with GCA is, okay, if you're only going to have employees in here for maintenance-wise that maybe can change a light bulb, that's about all they can do.
Yeah, what can they
But
do?
they can't go up high. But, so then, don't even tell them to change the sensor faucet because you know they don't have the caliber. Just call somebody in immediately and bill it out to them.
Right.
If they don't want to keep the caliber employee that
Well,
can do that
but
stuff,
see, that's
then fine.
that, what you're saying is essentially, you're rewriting the contract.
Right.
You got 48 hours to prove that you have the expertise on your staff to do this, or I get to go right to a contractor and get it and bill you.
Well, that's in the
Can I
contract.
change the topic?
That's in the contract.
Well, then,
It sounds like we're still focused on GCA. Let me put on my black hat and ask you a question. And this is not personal with you. Should this be a committee discussion or should it be an executive session discussion? Because you're talking a personnel issue here. You drew up a job description. Are we sure that Casey can do all these things?
I created the job description because I was asked by the facility
For a job description.
to do it. I
That's
gave
all-
this
that's
to her
another
months
issue,
ago.
I think.
mean, this was months ago. I think before GCA even got it, or they were just coming on board.
It was, I think it was September, or so,
Yeah.
yeah. So,
it was
and we didn't
discussed.
meet in October, so, you know, here it is. I understand what you're saying, but to me that they're two different issues. If potentially, and again, it's not, I mean, that's a personnel issue, but if we're looking at what's the new role for the facilities director with having outsourced facilities, I think that's,
And I was also
I don't
asked,
know that you create the job for the person, you create the
the job,
position.
I was asked what's needed in the district. And an operations director who oversees the non-academic areas, transportation, nutrition, service, and the maintenance custodial needs, grounds. That's the operations side. So I'm always asking, what do we need? What do we need?
Right.
Chief academic officer of operations, and it falls under the
And I
manager.
think that's fine, except I do have one more question, but I still would like to discuss, what you're doing is, you're saying that, and you're saying it's not for the person, but you're moving the person into the job regardless. And you've mentioned Nutrition Inc. several times, but I don't see anything about Nutrition Inc. in this job description. No.
But yeah, let's be blunt, right? I mean, I've already heard you say you don't like some of the stuff you're doing. So, I mean, so here's what I'm saying. So, if this is going to be the job description with some tweaks, okay?
And you want to be.
We need, the administration needs to provide some support to you to help acclimate you to some of the roles here. But by the same token, you might not want to get acclimated, and that's fine. Let us know. I mean, you might not be a fit for us anymore. But by the same token, we want you to be the fit, and there's some stuff we need to support you with to train you a little bit, then we're happy to do that.
I wouldn't say there's parts of my job that I don't like. There's a lot of parts of my job right now that are very frustrating.
Well, but what I'm saying is,
No, I'm just saying,
you're in the driver's seat
Right.
with them, because really, I think I know you're looking at the outsourcing as a negative in some ways, but from a positive point of view, you're really in the driver's seat. If they're not living up to your expectations, you have the authority to come in now and say, you're not doing X. I've asked you to do X 2 times. I've documented that you didn't do it. You guys need you need to replace Doug, or you need to get new employees or extra employees or employees that actually can do the job. You're not training them. You're not. So really, I said it jokingly. You can be an SOB, but that's part of.
And I've started to do that.
And what Dave has said is true, except that's no different than the position that he was in before.
Right.
When the people directly worked for you, you were in exactly the same position. If they weren't doing it, you said.
But
I had authority over this.
It was harder because they were union. It was harder to be.
Actually, it was easier. I'll be flat out honest with you. When they were and there again, listen, outsourcing out of my personal views of that out of the conversation. When I had employees here, I could go to those employees and I could say, I need you to do this, 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 and this. They knew there were consequences because I was their boss. Okay? It was a challenge, don't get me wrong, but there were consequences. Now, I have one person to talk to, their boss. Them performing relies on their boss.
Right.
Sure.
All I can do is go to their boss. So I can talk to him till I'm blue in the face, which I've done numerous times.
Right.
The staff may not change.
Sure. I mean.
So
I don't know that he can really
Common in corporate
direct
America,
us
right?
there.
Jeff deals with it every day. So did I for way too many years, right? I'm working with another department that I need to get something done, right? So I go to somebody's boss who has allocated resources to help me do something, and they're not doing it. And I can't talk to them because they don't work for me, right? So I go to their boss and say, you need to do this. And if their boss doesn't lean on them, what recourse do I have? They don't work for me, right? I understand your frustration.
My question, Jim, is less on the supervision than the planning stuff, managing ongoing department management programs and software, preparing annual and interim budget reports, and preparing annual budgets. I mean, this is all stuff that right now the business office has been doing.
No, he does it. We just talked about a program that he would manage, the facility rental software that he would manage. He does the budget. I mean, he brings the budget to the business office.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I had questions, and I think because it's personnel related, it should be discussed in executive session. It's,
That's fine, we can do that.
So, well, that's fine, but
But-
I
like
don't
Casey
see why
aside,
not.
like,
I
is this
don't-
the job that we
Right,
need?
that's the
Is
question,
this,
that's the question for the
is the
committee.
job
Right,
description,
right, that's what the
does it,
committee's
does it
looking for.
represent what we need?
Right.
And then you're back
Do we
to,
agree with Jim's vision
but
that
then
this
you're
is
back to
what?
nutrition A. Should that be in here or shouldn't it?
Yeah.
That's what I think that's what we have to
Yeah, it
decide.
should be.
Yeah,
I thought all the contracted services were in there. And then Lauren tweaked some things, and I tweaked some things.
I know what it's
Well, I can
talking
tell
about, but it's not.
or maybe I don't have the latest one. This is the last one I got, but maybe it's not the latest. So all I really wanted was the committee to start taking a look at it so we could discuss it. I didn't really want to go
Well,
into
let's, for our next meeting,
Right,
let's
that was
all
my
come in
next-
with,
yeah.
let's come in with our feedback, like
Right.
officially
Well,
on.
let me and Lauren look at it. We'll tweet, and I'll send it to you.
Okay. That's all. And then very last thing is, have we gotten anywhere, Lauren, with the vehicle and the auditor and what the,
Yes, we had originally, in talking with the auditors, we came forward with a straight mileage. Developing the value of the vehicle for personal use based on mileage. Casey happens to have the same accounting firm as we do. His personal CPA used the lease value versus fair market value. And I'm fine with that. And he sent me the spreadsheet. I spoke with him today. You have to factor in the fair market value. I ran the fair market value. I asked a dealer to determine the fair market value on here. I think his fair market value is a little low, but it's a simple matter of making it part of his W-2, and then moving forward, we can assess it per pay, but we're at the end of a pay year now. So that simply addresses the value of the truck for personal use.
okay, okay, because of the budget year, the actual tax year versus our budget year. So what, can I ask what the value is?
His number came up around 2,009, 2,200 a year.
Okay.
The personal value of the vehicle.
So, from the committee, is our recommendation still that he should be allowed to use the vehicle?
Yes.
Okay, and then, I guess,
I think our biggest concern was making sure we were following IRS regulations, yeah.
And that's what
It sounds like you guys are in lockstep and,
I mean, I'm not on the committee, but I agree. I mean, that seems like a reasonable
all
approach
right.
to me.
My only other question is, would we consider any type of stipend to cover the tax increase that he would be facing? I mean, I'm thinking it's probably a few $100. I mean, if it's $2,200 and I don't know what his tax bracket is, but if it's 25, if it's 25%.
I mean, look, all right, so personally,
asking a
my
question.
feeling is that if in fact this was done properly, this IRS regulation would have been followed from the get-go. And the fact that it wasn't is, we can point fingers, I don't know that it's important. The fact is that going forward, we're going to follow the IRS regulations. And we just start with that.
But if he took the position based on what was offered, and the vehicle was offered, and now that vehicle is going to be assessed to him, and he will have a financial effect on him, then why not increase his pay to cover the cost of that?
That is the benefit.
Your argument sounds just like Amy Hicks talking about a past practice.
I'm
Because
just-
somebody did something years ago that they shouldn't have done, you would have perpetuated.
It's, if I'm a salesman and I'm offered a company car, I get a company car and I drive the hell out of it, right? It's up to me to pay for the taxes on it. And I'm saying that, I'm not saying, I'm not assessing blame to Casey, but because the business office at that time should have questioned it too. Nobody did. So I'm saying, that's all water under the bridge. But going forward, we're gonna follow the IRS guidelines and
I'm
that's
all
that.
for that. I'm saying, when I hit position, I had the car, they took X number of dollars out, but they told me that up front. Now he's being
But
told
what,
that.
yeah, but you're like, okay, who should have told who? Like, I mean, his
Well,
accountant.
let me just jump in
It
here,
just seems
because
kinda silly.
I'm getting kind of irritated just sitting here, but I'm going to lay this out very, very simple. In my interview process, Lauren Small was sitting there with Mary Beth Torsha. Conversation came up about my salary, all right? Kyle Schaefer, who was going to be your facility director before he declined the offer, asked for $78,000 a year. In my interview, I got nothing to hide. In my interview, I sat there, and I'm not going to try to get personal here, but if Lauren wants to admit to it or not, that's his choice. I flat out said, when I was asked salary, what's your salary requirements? I said, I will accept the same value, the same salary as what the former director did for Mantetum, because I know the financial situation the school district's in, as long as I have the truck. All right? If I would have known I wouldn't have had the truck, I would have asked for $85,000, $90,000, which is comparable to what everybody else in the county is being paid. Exeter's being paid $90,000. If you go to the school districts that surround this school district, Exeter's being paid $90,000, Twin Valley's at $95,000, Pottstown's at $105,000, Pottsgrove's $110,000, O&J's $120,000. All right, so if the argument is me as the director and nobody else in the area is allowed to have the truck, then the argument has to happen, okay, if we're going to use everybody else, now we use everybody else for salary. All right? I took in account of what that truck value was. I know what that truck value is. I had a business. I had many men who had trucks and took them home. I know what it is. It's a nice convenience. But I took less pay to not implicate the school district on the PESers and the taxes and all those other expenses that the school district has to have in regards to that pay because I had that truck. All right? That truck, IRS compliance, very simple. School district mandates me take it home, end of story. End of story. There is no salary implication. There is no claim of income. It's a requirement, the same way I had it with my guys. My guys were required to take the truck home to report to work from home. All right, this is the same conversation we had, the same argument I had 2-3 months ago when it came up. I think it's a disservice to me at this point to sit here and say, we're going to make you pay $2,000 for a truck that was supposed to be part of your income. You're right. If I'm a sales guy and I'm going for a job interview, I'm going to make sure my pay covers the expense of that vehicle. I didn't have an expense of a vehicle to cover by my pay because that expense was already was not an issue. Okay? I've been nothing but honest to this board for 2 years. I'm going to sit here and be the same way. That's how I feel. If I'm required to take this as income, it's going to cost you money in PESers. All right? If you want to make me claim it, fine, claim it. But then I should be given a one-time bonus every year to cover the tax liability of that claim of income plus the tax liability of that bonus. Because when I took this job, it was at no cost to me for that truck. And you said the business office should have questioned it before? He's sitting right there. I don't mean to be personal when I say it that way, but he was in my interview. So I've been nothing but understanding through this whole process. I have done my job in the best interest of the school district every day. I continue to do the best interest of the school district every day. I know what I've saved this school district in operating costs since I've been here. And for the administration, the time that we all have spent on this so outweighs the tax liability of this. I think it's an absolute disservice. I've kept my mouth closed this whole time through this. I've been understanding. I've followed my chain of command. I've been the good little soldier. This needs to get resolved because it's just wrong. I'm sorry. It's absolutely wrong that this conversation is even happening because, whether your personal feelings are towards Mary Beth Torch or whatever they were, she hired me. That was the agreement. It was a verbal agreement. Absolutely. But it was an agreement and the pretense of my hire.
I, for one, appreciate your bluntness because I like bluntness. But let me say three things. One, to my knowledge, nobody's mandating you taking the truck home. Two, to give you a bonus to pay for the tax implication. The tax implication is because you don't have to use your own vehicle to travel back and forth to work. So you're actually already getting a bonus because you're not using your own vehicle, your own gas, your own insurance. Three, question to Mr. Small. You said you were in the interview. Was the truck part of the bargain in the interview?
I don't actually, if Casey said that was the discussion, I don't remember the offer being made. I remember a question regarding what's your salary expectation, and I remember the fact that you would accept what the other guy that had been offered the job a month before because they were friends and knew what the arrangement was. If I was a part of that, I don't recall that. But Casey says I was, I guess I was. I don't remember.
I don't have any doubts that was what was discussed. I mean, I'm not questioning that.
None of us, I don't think.
No, but I think what he's saying is he was looking at that as part of his, as part of his salary. And if he wasn't gonna have a vehicle and he wasn't gonna have to, if he was gonna have to use his own gas and use his own vehicle, he would have asked for more money. He was looking at that as part of his.
I mean, to say that I could use the
package.
truck and get a $220 a year tax bill or get $20,000 added to my salary, I don't know that that's really an accurate comparison. Like, I don't know that we would say, okay, don't take the truck and you'll get paid $98,000. Like, I mean, I don't think, I wasn't there, but I have a hard time believing that there could be a discussion between having a take-home vehicle and getting paid another $25,000.
Well,
The fact that the salaries are what they are across other districts, I'm not going to debate you on that either. I wouldn't begrudge anybody who wants more to be paid more and be paid equally for someone who does the same job at other districts. Yeah, I don't have any issue with that. I'm just saying that the fact is that you have a company car, and as such, we have to treat it somehow that meets IRS guidelines.
Right, and in any offer.
However
cannot
that
take us
is-
out of compliance. That offer.
Just doing nothing is out of compliance.
True.
Just
So
saying,
that
here,
offer
just use the truck and we'll just keep it between us.
keeps us out of
That's out of compliance.
So when it was discovered,
Right.
he came to me when I first got here. I said, "Oh yeah, you have to pay something for it because I've had vehicles. I've worked at pharmaceutical
That's all I'm saying.
operations. We
I-
always had vehicles.
it's not personal.
Take
I don't-
something out. So and I said, "Oh, well, that has to be fixed." And I just thought it was a quick conversation. Whatever percentage, $6, $4 a week comes out of your pay goes towards it, and that's it. Then it came out that this was an offer of employment, but that offer, that perk, is not legal in that way. So we have to correct it, and that's what this is.
I guess the question I'm saying is that do you have a choice of no perk or the taxes on $2,200?
But that's not relevant anymore. I mean, like,
It was discovered,
The
it has to be
offer,
corrected.
the offer was the offer. It was discovered, it needs to be corrected. The issue for us is whether we feel obligated to offer money to make up for what has to be done to
Make it compliant.
to comply with IRS guidelines or not, whether we feel morally obligated to offer that money. That's
Basically.
right. I mean, that's-
Can I ask a simple question? I mean, when a discussion of a vehicle comes up, I mean, does the next question be, what are my tax implications? I mean, not usually. It's, do I get a company car or not? Right?
No, usually that conversation comes, because I had it, most jobs, they give me a car, I said, well, you're gonna get a vehicle, part of this job, and we'll take
Yeah,
X amount of
I'm not
dollars
blaming
out of your
Casey.
pay.
I'm saying that.
Yeah, no.
between-
I'm saying, does that use, does that
I'm
comment
not
use
blaming
well?
Casey. I'm saying some, like, again, if the business office knows we have an employee that's getting a company car, then if the employee's not saying anything, if his account's not saying anything, then the business office should have said something at some
Martin came to
point.
me when I first got here. I just thought it was a given that if someone has a company car taking it home, there's some money being, if there's a tax implication. I said, okay, let's fix it. And then that's how this started, and it's been this long.
Well, it started with people didn't want Casey to have the car.
Right.
That's how it
Let's face
started.
That's how it really
And that
started.
that was like, oh no, we're not gonna put miles in the car, and why does he have a company car?
I work
And
for Mass
we
Mutual,
voted on that.
Right, I actually work for Mass Mutual, but I'm paid entirely on commission, right? And they don't take a cent of taxes from me. I earn a commission, and they pay it. But I'm obligated to pay the taxes. If I don't, I can't go to them and say, well, I thought you were paying me this amount of money, and that included the tax implications. And I'm not saying that to fault you, I'm simply saying, right? So, I mean, like, the tax implications are passed on to me.
Yeah. See, but my opinion was, if we're going to take the car from you, then I think you should be compensated, because that was part of, I agree, part of your package coming here was a company vehicle, right? And if that was going to be taken from you, then I think you should be compensated for that, because that was part of the deal. But the tax implications, it has to fall to the person.
I understand, but why should that cost me money? Why should that tax that is
Well, if we paid you higher, you'd be paying more taxes on that, right? If we compensated you dollar-wise, instead of giving you a truck, instead of giving you more money, you're paying more taxes on that, right?
But remember, I know, I took, the whole point is, and I know where you're going, you guys want me to pay the tax on it, claim the income and pay the tax. So now it's $400 or $500 out of my pocket. Okay? Because I was hired under a pretense of a certain salary. So if I knew it was going to cost me $500 for that truck and tax, you don't think I would have said, okay, I'll take $85,000 a year if I'm going to have to claim that income?
Question, Casey, did Mary Beth Torres say, we'll give you the truck and we won't charge you for the taxes?
She said, you will have the same arrangement Ken Smith has. You will take the truck to and from home every day. And you can only use it, and you can only use it for work, and that is part of your job.
But there was no discussion of taxes. And
No.
that's what Jeff was saying earlier. For the amount of time you've worked here, you've gotten away without paying the taxes. There's been
And
no-
as I said earlier, you can very easily, it's not a compliance issue, because every contractor does it, and I did it. It is, what I did for my service techs was, I required them to report from home. So I required them to have a truck. And that's what every contractor does. So there is no tax liability. My guys, not one of my employees ever claimed income as a benefit of taking that truck to and from home, because it was an expense me as a business owner was willing to pay.
I think
Is
there's
there
a
a way
bit,
for us to check into that? If he's right, and
I think there's a,
I'm not
yeah.
saying that you're wrong, I'm simply saying I don't know, right? But you understand what
My
I'm saying?
accountant was the COO of Herbine and Company. So
All
I
I'm
just,
saying is, if he's right, if we make
It
a
could be, but
requirement.
I think sometimes there's a different accounting practices for a small business as opposed to a agency that gets audited every
Okay,
year.
My only point is if we check into
you
it,
know.
if we can do this with, and have him not have to worry about the tax liability, then I don't think there's any harm in doing that.
But why would we require him to take it home?
Because he's on call 24/7 and has to report it, and he might have to report at 3 in the morning, or on Saturday, or on I mean, that's why that's
Listen,
why
if there's-
most
if
people have
there's a- if there's a-
on-call
if-
take-home
if-
vehicles.
If we're allowed, if we could be in compliance
Yeah.
and have him not have to claim it, I don't care.
all I'm saying
I just
is,
want to make sure we're not doing anything
if
we shouldn't
I
do.
have to claim those income, I feel I should have a one-time bonus to offset the tax liability of that claim of income and the tax liability of that bonus. That is no cost to me.
You know, the IRS, I think I told you, came into the IU. and now everybody at the they have to, every employee, every employee, custodian and whatnot, is now being, in their taxes, they're paying for uniforms. And I said, what? It's a uniform. It's a required, it's a required garment. How can, it's a non-taxable, what?
No, the uniform is taxable if you could wear it outside of work.
Correct.
I'm like, how can you wear a uniform with your name and then the BCIU?
In case you get lost in the mall, they can send you home.
Yeah.
No, really. Then pants, so like you put like the fireman's pants on for groundskeepers, because that is a reflective safety gear, and that's not taxable. But a shirt or something else is taxable.
So now all the IU employees have to pay taxes now.
I think
For example, if you're an
that's a
entertainer, if you're a
strict.
woman, your gown, if you can sit down in it,
I
it's
think that's a
taxable.
strict interpretation.
I
I used
think
to
so,
write,
too.
I used to write my uniforms often, because I wasn't wearing them
But
anywhere else
anyway.
because they were
All right,
filthy.
so we're trying to set.
So can we look into that and get a final answer and resolve this?
I remember when I first got here, I raised the question because Ken Smith, of course, the response was, Ken Smith was 2 blocks from a building, lived within 2 blocks of the building, and that's where he stored the district's truck, because it was driving.
I'm sure he did use it for personal use at all.
No, he didn't tow his boat down to Delaware.
Yeah, right.
Value of the vehicle.
Anybody, any of the public have any questions, comments, concerns?
That entire last conversation didn't even happen for me.
Thank you.
You got all the good stuff from the police chief saying we have all this.
Yeah, I might take this car home too, not pay taxes. I know a lot of policemen.
Yeah,
drive
none
the
of them
police car
pay it.
home and back, and they don't pay any taxes on that. That's part of their job.
Yes.
Having that police car at home so they can respond to something.
Yeah, actually, in my neighborhood, there's a cop from Lower Marion.
Yes,
That's a good
That's
haul.
a heck of a
That's a
haul.
good haul. And the car comes.
yeah. All right, meeting adjourned, I guess?
Yeah.